Chapter 600. Duan Lingtian held the two little pythons in his hand, and his eyes were filled with gentleness. Presently the little white snake had broken through to the third level of the void initiation stage after the little black snake. The Bai clan's third young master, Bai Fan, was at most a void-prying stage martial artist, and he didn't have the slightest strength to fight back before the two little pythons. He wasn't even able to react before he was killed. Fan. Right at this moment, a voice that was like a thunderclap and contained boundless rage sounded out from afar. Duan Lingtian slightly turned his head, and he could see a middle-aged man that was escorted by two old men as he soared over, and his speed soared to the limit in the blink of an eye. In the blink of an eye, the middle-aged man swooped down to descend on the high platform at the center of the square, and he embraced Bai Fan as he cried out in grief. Fan. Fan. It's the Bai clan's second master, Bai Ming. Looks like it wasn't only the Bai clan's third young master, Bai Fan, that came to join in the fun today, even his father, Bai Ming, has come as well. This Bai Fan probably came with his father and arrived here first, yet was killed in the end. That young man, young woman, and the two snake-type demon beasts by their side are going to suffer misfortune. The surrounding crowd of spectators whispered in discussion. Most people glanced at Duan Lingtian and Han Xuanai with pity. But Duan Lingtian and Han Xuanai weren't affected in the slightest, and they stood in midair on the spot with carefree expressions, as if their expressions wouldn't change even if Mount Tai collapsed before them. Whoosh, whoosh. Meanwhile, the two old men that the middle-aged man brought along flew out, and they stood not far from the two sides of Duan Lingtian and Han Xuanai, as if they were preventing Duan Lingtian and Han Xuanai from fleeing. Meanwhile, Bai Ming finally recovered from his shock, and he who was filled with extreme grief and indignation embraced his dead son as he soared up into the sky, forming a triangle with the two old men that surrounded Duan Lingtian and Han Xuanai at the center. You dare kill my son? Today I'll make you pay with your blood. Bai Ming gnashed his teeth as he spoke word by word. At this moment Bai Ming was enraged to the limit. He had been obsessed with martial arts all his life and only had one son. Now, his son had died because of the person in front of him. You're the second master of the Bai family, right? Duan Lingtian glanced at Bai Ming indifferently. When you say these words, shouldn't you first ask why we killed your son? Just now, if Bai Fan had not wanted to make a move on Han Xuanai, Little Black and Little White would not have suddenly killed him. That's not necessary. Bai Ming coldly snorted, and his eyes were filled with a ruthless luster. No matter what the reason is, since you killed my son, then you must be buried with him. As he spoke up to hear, the origin energy on Bai Ming's body raged and skyrocketed. Above his head, 10 silhouettes of ancient horned dragons condensed into form and spiraled down, giving off an extremely strong oppressive feeling. 7th level of the void initiation stage. The second master of the Bai clan is indeed worthy of being one of the two great experts in the Bai clan who can stand shoulder to shoulder with the Bai clan's ancestor. He lives up to his reputation. Now that the second master of the Bai family is enraged, this young man and young woman are probably dead for sure. They were too impulsive and actually dared to kill Bai Fan. Could it be that they didn't know that Bai Fan was the favorite of the second master of the Bai family? The surrounding people observed a moment of silence for Duan Lingtian and Han Xuanai. No matter what the reason is, we must be buried with your son? Bai Ming's words angered Duan Lingtian to the point his face sank slightly. Big brother Lingtian, you can't reason with some people. To them, strength is sufficient to replace any reason. Han Xuanai had a calm expression and wasn't enraged by Bai Ming's words. Or perhaps, from the beginning until the end, she didn't take Bai Ming seriously. Yes. Xuanai, you do as you deem fit in this matter. Duan Lingtian nodded and didn't say anything further as he watched all this coldly from the sidelines. Kill them. Bai Ming shouted out explosively as he embraced the corpse of his son with one hand and slapped out with the other like a cattail leaf fan. Boom. Waves of fiery red energy rose from the palm that was filled with raging origin energy and swept out. It blasted towards Duan Lingtian, wanting to directly kill Duan Lingtian. At the same time, another 6 silhouettes of ancient horned dragons appeared above Bai Ming's head. 6th level fire concept. Whoosh. When Bai Ming's palm struck out, Duan Lingtian only felt an extremely hot gust of wind in front of him. The hot aura grew stronger and stronger as it rose continuously. In the end, Duan Lingtian's forehead began to sweat uncontrollably. Faced with Bai Ming's menacing palm strike, although Duan Lingtian felt a great pressure, he didn't have any intention of dodging. He stood on the spot, unmoving like a mountain. Has this young man gone mad? He still dares to stand foolishly at this time? Many of the surrounding people were dumbfounded. Perhaps he feels that he can't escape death today, so he might as well give up resisting. Do you think he can survive in front of the second master of the Bai family? Someone had another idea. That makes sense. His words obtained the agreement of many people. At this moment, most people looked at Duan Lingtian with gazes filled with pity. They didn't think that Duan Lingtian would be able to survive under Bai Ming's palm strike. For a time, the atmosphere at the scene was slightly oppressive. Right at this moment, an abrupt voice broke the oppressive atmosphere at the scene. You dare make a move against Big Brother Lingtian? You're courting death. Under the gazes of everyone present, the yellow-clothed young girl that stood in midair spoke. At the same time that she spoke, the people present didn't see the yellow-clothed young girl make any movements. In the next moment, whoosh, an extremely icy cold aura suddenly exploded out in midair, and it covered the heavens and the earth as it swept down, causing everyone present to be frozen to the point they couldn't help but shiver. When they returned to their senses, they saw a scene that they would never be able to forget in their entire lives. They saw Bai Ming, the second master of the Bai family that attacked the violet-clothed young man, had completely stopped in midair and transformed into an ice sculpture. Bai Fan's corpse in his arms had also transformed into an ice sculpture along with him. The people present were able to clearly see. The fire concept on Bai Ming's body had already been completely suppressed by the ice that enveloped his body now. It wasn't just that, the origin energy on his body was ceaselessly vanishing as well. After a short moment, the origin energy on Bai Ming's body vanished without a trace. Meanwhile, his body had lost its final support, and accompanied by the ice that covered his body, it crashed down. Bang! An enormous bang sounded out, and everyone clearly saw that Bai Ming's entire body along with the ice that covered his body fell to the ground and shattered into countless pieces of ice. Bai Ming, the second master of the Bai clan, one of the only two 7th level void initiation stage experts in the Bai clan, had died. The scene was deathly silent. Over 90% of the people present were staring blankly at the pieces of ice that covered the ground. Not a single complete piece of these pieces of ice could be seen. Ice concept. In next to no time, someone exclaimed in shock with a trembling voice. His words caused everyone present to be unable to help but recover from their shock, and they couldn't help but look at the yellow-clothed young girl in midair with gazes filled with fear and reverence. Based on her outer appearance, this yellow-clothed young girl was at most 15 or 16 years old. At the beginning, many people were indescribably shocked when they saw the yellow-clothed young girl appear. A young girl that was 15 or 16 years old standing in midair undoubtedly indirectly displayed her cultivation at the void prying stage or above. This was already sufficient to cause people to be shocked to the point of being speechless for a long time. But now, the yellow-clothed young girl had once again caused everyone to be shocked. The young girl had only just finished speaking when she caused a 7th level void initiation stage martial artist to transform into an ice sculpture before falling to the ground and shattering, and he died a graveless death. Such a shocking ability would cause terror to arise from the bottom of anyone's heart when they saw it for the first time. Most importantly, it was because all of this was caused by a young girl. A young girl that was at the prime of her youth, and the Bai clan's second master, Bai Ming, was gone just like that. Did she really do it herself? Many people were bewildered and didn't dare believe that all of this was true. A young girl that was 15 or 16 years old had killed a 7th level void initiation stage existence. Even if it was in the entire foreign lands, there were probably not many people capable of doing it, right? Not to mention a mere Eastern Mulberry Empire. I didn't see clearly that it was she who did it, but I can be sure that even if it wasn't her, it was still someone that was concealed in the shadows and protecting her. Looks like her identity isn't simple, and there's actually an expert that's capable of instantly killing the Bai clan's second master, Bai Ming, concealed by her side. That expert is an extremely rare existence that has comprehended the ice concept. Supposedly, ice concept can be considered to be a top concept amongst the numerous concepts of nature. Now that I've seen it today, it deserves its reputation. Too terrifying. In the blink of an eye, she sealed a person in ice and transformed him into an ice sculpture before allowing him to perish on his own before being forcefully smashed into countless pieces. The surrounding crowd of spectators discussed ceaselessly. Their words were filled with fear. He was wary of Han Xuanai. Of course, there were some people with comparatively higher cultivations amongst the people present, and they saw the numerous ancient horned dragon silhouettes that flashed in the sky above Han Xuanai. Even though they didn't see clearly how many ancient horned dragon silhouettes there were. But they could be sure of one thing. Earlier, It was indeed this yellow-clothed young girl that made a move and sealed the Bai clan's second master, Bai Ming, in ice. Second master. The two old men that appeared with Bai Ming now looked at the shattered ice that covered the ground, and their emaciated bodies lightly trembled. The scene before them had exceeded their expectations. The second master was one of the two great experts of their Bai clan, and his strength was comparable to their Bai clan's ancestor. But in the blink of an eye he was killed. They were slightly unable to accept this. You two old fellows, do you want to continue staying and take revenge for your second master and third young master? Or get the hell out of my sight? Han Xuanai's gaze lazily descended onto the two old men, and her voice that was like an aureole had a trace of impatience mixed within. The two old men's bodies trembled as if they were struck by lightning when they heard this. In the next moment, they didn't dare hesitate in the slightest and hurriedly fled into the distance, vanishing before the eyes of everyone in the central square. What a joke. Even the second master was instantly killed. If they continued to stay, they would only be courting death. They knew clearly in their hearts. Chapter 601. Along with the departure of the two old men of the Bai clan, Duan Lingtian and Han Xuanai had become the center of attention of the entire scene. But the attention of the surrounding people was quickly moved away. Only because the members of the Tang clan had arrived. It's the Tang clan's Grand Elder. The Tang clan's Grand Elder is an existence that has stepped into the 8th level of the Void Initiation stage. In the Tang clan, in terms of strength, he's only inferior to the Tang clan's ancestor. I never imagined that the Tang clan's Grand Elder would personally preside over the auction this afternoon. The surrounding crowd of spectators were clamorous. On the other hand, Duan Lingtian's gaze descended onto the 5 people that were flying over from afar. Amongst these 5 people, the person in the lead was a white-haired old man, and his pair of muddy eyes occasionally flashed with a dazzling bright light. When looked at from afar, he seemed like an ordinary old man. However, the spiritual force that Duan Lingtian stretched out told him that this old man was in existence at the 8th level of the Void Initiation stage. He's the Tang clan's Grand Elder? Duan Lingtian listened to the surrounding discussions and easily guessed the old man's identity. Duan Lingtian had come to the Eastern Mulberry Empire's imperial city for a period of time after all, and he had a certain level of understanding towards the Eastern Mulberry Empire's Tang clan. Besides the imperial family, the Tang clan was the strongest power in the Eastern Mulberry Empire. It was undoubtedly extremely rare for a clan to be able to reign supreme in an empire. Supposedly, there were 5 people at the 7th level of the Void Initiation stage or above in the Tang clan. The strongest person was even in existence at the 9th level of the Void Initiation stage. That day when he just found out about the Tang clan's strength, Duan Lingtian had even sighed with emotion. The strength of this Tang clan is probably not much inferior to the imperial family of the Eastern Mulberry Empire. Everyone. Meanwhile, the 5 people of the Tang clan led by the Tang clan's Grand Elder descended onto the high platform, and the Tang clan's Grand Elder looked at the surroundings before speaking abruptly. Instantly, the entire place fell silent and quieted down. Today our Tang clan will be auctioning a demon beast here. A Void Initiation stage demon beast. The Tang clan's Grand Elder was obviously not a person and directly went straight to the point. Void Initiation stage demonic beast? Instantly the onlookers, whether on the ground or in the air, were in an uproar. After all, once a demon beast broke through to the Void Initiation stage, its intelligence was already no different than a human. Most importantly, Void Initiation stage demonic beasts usually had their own dignity. He would rather die in battle than live on his knees. Even if a human strength surpassed a Void Initiation stage demon beast, wanting to subdue a Void Initiation stage demon beast was practically impossible. It was precisely because of this that the value of Void Initiation stage demon beasts in the human world was extremely high. Now, the Tang clan wanted to auction off a Void Initiation stage demon beast? A Void Initiation stage demon beast that was able to be auctioned off by the Tang clan was undoubtedly not the type of demon beast that would rather die than submit. Anyone would want to get their hands on such a demonic beast. Especially those people that belonged to powers that had a limited number of Void Initiation stage martial artists. Their faces were flushed red as they mustered up all their strength and prepared to bid for that Void Initiation stage demon beast. Void Initiation stage demonic beast? Duan Lingtian's brows raised. This Tang clan has some ability. They're actually able to capture a Void Initiation stage demon beast to auction off. May I ask Grand Elder Tang, what level of the Void Initiation stage demon beast is your Tang clan bidding for? In next to no time, someone couldn't refrain from asking. First level of the Void Initiation Stage. The Tang clan's Grand Elder replied indifferently. Even though it was only at the first level of the Void Initiation Stage, it still didn't extinguish the fervor of the surrounding people, and everyone looked at the Tang clan's Grand Elder with anticipation. Grand Elder Tang, where's that demon beast? Yeah, you have to let us experience it, right? Otherwise, how would you bid? Exactly. The surrounding crowd of spectators were in an uproar. Presently, most of the people that spoke were martial artists that stood in the sky with cultivations at the void prying stage or above. These people mostly had extraordinary backgrounds and abundant wealth. Everyone calm yourselves. The disciples of my Tang clan will bring that demon beast over right away. The Tang clan's Grand Elder raised his hand to stop the clamorous noise of the crowd. Needless to say, the Tang clan's Grand Elder still had a certain level of dignity. As soon as he finished speaking, the scene returned to calm once more. I thought it was some treasure, so it turns out that it's only a first-level Void Initiation Stage demon beast? Han Xuanai frowned and spoke with slight disappointment. Big brother Ling Tian, let's go. I'm not interested in a Void Initiation Stage demon beast. Han Xuanai said to Duan Ling Tian. Duan Ling Tian laughed bitterly. Not interested in a Void Initiation Stage demon beast? Probably only Xuanai was capable of saying these words. Since we've already come, let's see what demon beast the Tang clan wants to auction. I'm extremely curious as well, what sort of Void Initiation Stage demon beast the Tang clan has tamed. Duan Ling Tian suggested. Alright, then I'll accompany big brother Ling Tian to join in the fun. Han Xuanai nodded with a light smile and agreed. Not long after, a wave of howling sounds of the wind sounded out from the distance. Subsequently, a middle-aged man that held an object covered by a red cloth flew over from the sky and flashed directly to the central square. After a short moment, he descended onto the high platform. Grand Elder. Subsequently, the middle-aged man respectfully and reverently passed the object covered by the red cloth to the Tang clan's Grand Elder. The Tang clan's Grand Elder nodded, and then he raised his hand to directly remove the red cloth. A specially made cage appeared in the Tang clan's Grand Elder's hand. Squeak squeak, right at this moment, a wave of low cries sounded out from within the cage. A little gold mouse that was completely furry was weakly lying within the cage in a sorry state, whereas the little gold mouse's jade-green eyes were looking up at the sky above the central square. The little gold mouse's eyes were filled with excitement. Meanwhile, Duan Lingtian was completely stunned, and he stared blankly at the little gold mouse within the cage as he muttered to himself with slight stupefaction. Little gold. Everyone. Meanwhile, the Tang clan's Grand Elder spoke out slowly. This little gold mouse is the Void Initiation Stage demon beast that my Tang clan wants to auction. According to my deduction, it ought to be a variant gold fur mouse. Even though it's only a first-level Void Initiation Stage demon beast, it has comprehended second-level lightning concept. As the Tang clan's Grand Elder finished speaking, his tone was resolute. Comprehended second-level lightning concept at the first level of the Void Initiation Stage? Instantly, the gazes of the surrounding crowd of spectators lit up. The comprehension ability of such a demon beast could be said to be shocking. Grand Elder Tang, I think its situation isn't good. Could it be that your Tang clan has used some medicine on it? Suddenly, a person with sharp gazes asked. Exactly. The Tang clan's Grand Elder nodded. Our Tang clan has indeed used origin stalling powder on it. However, this demon beast's will to live is extremely strong, and it's entirely possible to use origin stalling powder to control it and make it work for your Tang clan. When he spoke up to here, the Tang clan's Grand Elder was slightly complacent. Origin stalling powder is our Tang clan's unique secret prescription. Today, no matter who bids for this demon beast, our Tang clan will unconditionally provide 100 years of origin stalling powder to that person. As soon as the Tang clan's Grand Elder finished speaking, the scene was deathly silent, and only waves of heavy breathing remained. 100 years? Right at this moment, a cold laugh broke the silence of the scene. Do you really think that your Tang clan can continue existing for 100 years? An enraged and ruthless voice continued to sound out, and it caused the expressions of the Tang clan members including the Tang clan's Grand Elder to go pale. The gazes of everyone shot towards the source of the voice. A violet-clothed young man stood there. It's him. In next to no time, someone recognized Duan Lingtian. What does he want to do? Coldness arose in the hearts of many people. Even though this violet-clothed young man hadn't made a move since the beginning, a terrifying expert was concealed behind him and the young woman by his side. That expert hadn't made an appearance, yet was able to kill a 7th level Void Initiation Stage martial artist. That level of ability had already exceeded the scope of the Void Initiation Stage. Kid, you actually dare blaspheme our Tang clan? You deserve death. Right at this moment, the middle-aged man that stood by the side of the Tang clan's Grand Elder shouted out explosively before transforming into a flowing light that flashed directly towards Duanling Tian. For a time, 2 ancient horned dragon silhouettes appeared in the sky above the middle-aged man. Obviously, this was a first-level Void Initiation Stage martial artist. Bang! The middle-aged man slapped out with his palm, and raging origin energy condensed to transform into a palm print that was accompanied by strands of blue-colored energy as it enveloped towards Duanling Tian. Another ancient horned dragon silhouette appeared in the sky, first-level water concept. Duanling Tian revealed disdain when faced with the middle-aged man's shocking palm strike, and it was even to the extent that he didn't have any intention of dodging. In the next moment, Duanling Tian raised his hand, and origin energy raged on his hand before converging onto his index finger. Tempest Point. Duanling Tian abruptly pointed out with his finger, and first-level wind concept and advanced lightning force were accompanied by the finger force of his origin energy to transform into the Tempest Point that pierced towards the middle-aged man's palm print. In the sky, 3 ancient horned dragon silhouettes dashed out under the push of the 2,000 ancient mammoth silhouettes. Swish! The terrifying Tempest Point easily shattered the middle-aged man's palm print, and it didn't lose momentum in the slightest as it pierced through the middle-aged man's chest. You! The middle-aged man's pupils stared wide open as he raised his hand and pointed at Duanling Tian, wanting to say something, yet he wasn't able to continue in the end. Bang! The middle-aged man's body shook, and accompanied by fresh blood that sprayed out all over the sky, he fiercely fell onto the ground and completely lost all signs of life. Dead. Meanwhile, the pupils of the surrounding spectators constricted as they looked at the violet-clothed young man in the sky with astonishment. What a terrifying young man. His age looks to be around 25 at most, but his cultivation has already stepped into the first level of the Void Initiation Stage. Moreover, he has comprehended first-level wind concept and advanced lightning force. Where exactly did such a monstrous genius martial artist come from? With his strength, he probably possesses the qualifications to participate in the Dynasty Martial Competition 8 months from now, right? Not a single expert in the younger generation of our Eastern Mulberry Empire can compare to him. The surrounding crowd of spectators sighed successively. They were all subdued by Duanling Tian's natural talent and comprehension ability. Chapter 602. Exactly what sort of enmity does my Tang clan have with you? As the Tang clan's Grand Elder finished speaking, the turbidity in his eyes wasn't there any longer, and replacing it was terrifying killing intent. It seemed as if he would completely annihilate Duanling Tian if Duanling Tian was unable to give him an explanation. What enmity? Duanling Tian sneered, and his gaze descended onto the miniature cage in the Tang clan's Grand Elder's hand. Your Tang clan actually dares to torture little gold like this? It's little gold? Duanling Tian hadn't finished speaking when he was interrupted by the nearby Han Xuanai. Han Xuanai was originally curious why her big brother Ling Tian would suddenly lose his composure like this. Now, she could be considered to have completely understood. So it turned out that the little gold mouse that was imprisoned within the miniature cage by the Tang clan members was little gold. It really is a jade-eyed heavenly mouse. I didn't pay much attention to it earlier. Han Xuanai seriously sized up the little gold mouse for the first time, and she discerned the little gold mouse's background. Hiss hiss, at this moment 2 little heads popped out from under Duanling Tian's sleeve. It was little black and little white, and they were currently sizing up the little gold mouse within the cage with slightly complicated gazes. Little gold? The Tang clan's Grand Elder was stunned when he heard Duanling Tian, and he was unable to react for a moment. And right at this moment Han Xuanai moved. Han Xuanai swept her sleeve, and in an instant, an extremely icy cold gale swept out and enveloped the Tang clan members. In an instant, the 5 members of the Tang clan, including the Grand Elder of the Tang clan, turned into 5 ice sculptures. Only the cage in the Tang clan's Grand Elder's hand wasn't sealed in ice. Squeak squeak, however, the little gold mouse within the cage was still frozen to the point its entire body trembled. Little gold. Duanling Tian's figure flashed as he descended and seized the miniature cage. Swish. The grade 4 spirit sword struck out and easily slashed the cage apart. Xiaojin, are you okay? Duanling Tian rescued the little gold mouse and held it in his hand, sizing it up with a face full of concern. Creak, creak, The little gold mouse cried out twice before sending a voice transmission into Duan Lingtian's ears. Big brother. Lingtian. I feel terrible. I feel terrible. It's nothing. You've just been poisoned by the Tang clan's origin stalling powder. I'll bring you to the Tang clan right now and have them hand over the antidote. Duan Lingtian's eyes turned cold. Duan Lingtian was so angry that he even forgot that he could concoct the spirit cleansing pill that could cure all kinds of poisons. With the grade 3 pill fire that Duan Lingtian possessed after breaking through to the void initiation stage, so long as he was able to find the materials, he was completely capable of refining a grade 3 spirit cleansing pill. A grade 3 cleansing spirit pill, besides some extremely rare poisons in Cloud Continent, could easily neutralize all other poisons. At the same time that Duan Lingtian conversed with the little gold mouse, his arm swung up and abruptly swept out. Vast origin energy swept out and enveloped the 5 Tang clan members, including the Tang clan's Grand Elder, that had transformed into ice sculptures. Bang, bang, bang. 5 enormous bangs sounded out at practically the exact same time. In the next moment, the 5 ice sculptures transformed into shattered ice that covered the sky and fell to the ground. The 5 Tang clan members were all dead. Killing without spilling blood was nothing more than this. Xuanai, accompany me to the Tang clan, please. Duan Lingtian's eyes were dyed with a wisp of crimson red as he looked at Han Xuanai, and his tone contained slight sincerity mixed within. Big brother Lingtian, why are you being so courteous with me? Your business is my business. Xuanai shook her head and smiled, then looked at a nearby middle-aged man and asked indifferently, do you know where the Tang clan is? I know. The middle-aged man's expression went grim when he was stared at by Han Xuanai. Initially, he did not want to be involved in this matter. However, under Han Xuanai's burning gaze, he finally nodded his head. Lead the way. Han Xuanai spoke indifferently. Yes, yes. The middle-aged man didn't dare hesitate and hurriedly flashed towards the distance. What a joke. Earlier, he'd clearly seen this young woman's ability. With a raise of her hand, she'd sealed 5 great experts of the Tang clan in ice. He felt that his strength was far inferior to the experts of the Tang clan, so he completely couldn't arouse the thought of refusing the young woman's request. Who knew if the young woman would become enraged from embarrassment because of this? If the young woman was enraged, killing him was only a matter of an instant. Swoosh. Duan Lingtian took the lead and followed the middle-aged man. Han Xuanai followed closely behind as well. As for the others present, their eyes shone as they followed from afar. Looks like the Tang clan is going to suffer misfortune today. Yeah, if that young woman is enraged, the Tang clan will probably be completely removed from our Eastern Mulberry Empire. I originally thought that there was an expert behind the young woman that was helping her. Earlier, when the young woman made a move, I found out that there was no one helping her at all. Her strength is too terrifying. I'm sure that she's an expert from the foreign lands. The surrounding crowd of spectators discussed animatedly at the same time that they followed Duan Lingtian and Han Xuanai. For a time, this corner of the Eastern Mulberry Empire's imperial city was completely bustling with noise and excitement. Both of you, this is the Tang clan estate. The middle-aged man that led the way pointed at the vast estate ahead. Whoosh. Duan Lingtian's gaze went slightly cold as he directly barged into the Tang clan estate. Who's there? The Tang clan disciples at the entrance of the Tang clan estate naturally wouldn't allow Duan Lingtian to barge in. K off. Duan Lingtian's eyes were filled with ruthlessness. With a raise of his hand, he swung out his arm and easily blasted the Tang clan disciples that blocked his way flying. After heavily injuring them, he directly entered the Tang clan estate. When Han Xuanai followed closely behind, she couldn't help but stick out her tongue. Big brother Lingtian is really angry. Looks like the jade-eyed heavenly mouse's position in his heart isn't the slightest bit inferior to Little Black and Little White. After he barged into the Tang clan estate, Duan Lingtian seemed as if he'd entered into an uninhabited land. Swish, 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 swish. The 2 little pythons ceaselessly flashed out, and the Tang clan disciples that blocked the way fell one by one. For a time, the entire Tang clan estate was in complete chaos. Flee. Flee quickly. Devil, he's a devil? He's a devil. The Tang clan disciples within the Tang clan estate, as well as the clan generals, servants and servant girls, fled in all directions. Who's there? You actually dare barge into my Tang clan? Finally, a stern shout sounded out, and a middle-aged man that wore luxurious clothes and had a handsome appearance led over a dozen old men in a hurry. Squeak squeak, after the middle-aged man in luxurious clothes appeared, the little gold mouse that lay on Duan Lingtian's shoulder raised its head with difficulty and cried out twice before sending a voice transmission to Duan Lingtian. Big brother Lingtian, it's him. He captured me and tortured me in every possible way before forcing me to consume that origin stagnation powder. Besides that, the spatial ring you refined for me was seized by him as well. As she finished speaking, the little gold mouse was extremely furious. Take out the antidote for the origin stagnation powder. Duan Lingtian looked at the middle-aged man and spoke word by word with a deep voice. The middle-aged man hadn't spoken when an old man behind him stood out and shouted with a grim voice. Kid, do you know who you're talking to? You dare be presumptuous before our Tang clan's patriarch? I think you're courting death. As soon as the old man finished speaking, the origin energy on his body skyrocketed like a ball of flames that ceaselessly rose. I think it's you who's courting death. A clear and cold voice suddenly sounded out and entered into the ears of everyone present. In the next moment, a strong wind that was icy cold to the extreme swept out, and it seemed to have transformed into a dreadful beast that pounced towards the old man. Instantly the old man's body froze on the spot, and his entire body transformed into an ice sculpture. Ninth Elder. The expression of the middle-aged man, the Tang clan's patriarch, went grim, and he stretched out his hand to press onto the ice sculpture, wanting to rescue the old man. But, as he raised his hand and pressed onto the ice sculpture, origin energy swallowed and spat out. Cracks that were like spiderwebs instantly appeared on the ice sculpture, then it exploded apart and transformed into countless pieces of ice. Whereas the old man that was sealed within the ice was completely shattered. Ninth Elder. The Tang clan's patriarch was dumbstruck. What exactly is going on? Ice concept. It's ice concept. Patriarch, this little girl has comprehended ice concept. Meanwhile, another sharp-eyed old man looked at Han Xuanai, and his tone was filled with fear. Ice concept? The pupils of the Tang clan's patriarch constricted as his body lightly trembled, and he recalled the records related to ice concept that he'd once seen in a book. Only now did he realize. Earlier, it was she who'd indirectly killed their Tang clan's ninth elder. Who exactly are all of you? The Tang clan's patriarch finally realized the severity of the matter. They'd obviously come prepared, otherwise they wouldn't be so arrogant. Moreover, this young woman that had comprehended ice concept had a cultivation that obviously surpassed him. He was a 7th level void initiation stage martial artist at any rate. Yet he was actually inferior to a young woman that looked to be 15 or 16 years old, and it caused him to be slightly driven mad. Who are we? Duan Lingtian sneered. Debt collectors. Debt collectors? The Tang clan's patriarch was first stunned, then he noticed the little gold mouse that lay on Duan Lingtian's shoulder, and his face went grim. Why is she in your possession? He didn't think that this little gold mouse was bought by someone with a large sum of money. Squeak. The little gold mouse let out a sharp cry as she glared angrily at the Tang clan's patriarch, and it was as if she'd seen a life and death enemy. Perhaps, in the eyes of the little gold mouse, she'd long since taken this Tang clan's patriarch to be a life and death enemy. In my eyes, little gold is my relative. Yet now, my relative has been tortured in every possible way by your Tang clan, and had the origin stalling powder forcefully forced down her throat by your Tang clan. Duan Lingtian's crimson-red eyes were filled with boundless ruthlessness, and his tone was low to the point it caused one's hair to stand on end. Hand over the antidote that eradicates the origin stalling powder's medicinal strength. Duan Lingtian practically shouted out word by word with a grim voice. There's no antidote that eradicates the origin stalling powder, only an antidote that suppresses it. Presently, the Tang clan's patriarch had realized that their Tang clan's grand elder and the others had been killed. They might have already been killed. He, who felt an extremely great sense of danger, didn't dare hesitate in the slightest when facing Duan Lingtian's question. A young woman that looked to be 15 or 16 years old had a strength that surpassed his own. As far as he was concerned, the backgrounds of these two people were extremely extraordinary. Chapter 603. There's no antidote to eradicate it? Duan Lingtian's face went grim when he heard the Tang clan's patriarch. Under extreme rage, Duan Lingtian's mind instead became slightly clear. How could I have forgotten the spirit cleansing pill? With the spirit cleansing pill, would I still need the Tang clan's antidote? Instantly, Duan Lingtian returned to his senses, and the gaze he shot at the Tang clan's patriarch with was completely cold. Xuanai. Duan Lingtian called out with a light voice. At practically the instant Duan Lingtian finished speaking, Han Xuanai made a move once more, and with a wave of her hand, the extremely icy cold wind swept out once more. Whoosh! Before the Tang clan's patriarch and all the higher-ups of the Tang clan could react, the cold wind had already enveloped them and transformed them into numerous ice sculptures. Over 10 human-shaped ice sculptures stood there, and it was an especially magnificent sight. Little Gold. Duan Lingtian rubbed the little gold mouse that lay limp on his shoulder, and he lightly smiled. Go on. A bright light flashed past the little gold mouse's jade-green eyes, and her limp body struggled to stand up before pouncing towards the ice sculptures. The ice sculpture that the Tang clan's patriarch had transformed into was the first to be blasted into pieces by the little gold mouse. Subsequently, the remaining higher-ups of the Tang clan that had transformed into ice sculptures weren't spared, and they were destroyed one by one at the hands of the enraged little gold mouse. Squeak squeak, when the little gold mouse returned, the ice sculptures didn't exist any longer, and only ice dregs that covered the ground remained. The little gold mouse lowered her head and bit out a piece from the numerous ice dregs, and then it transformed into a golden bolt of lightning that returned to Duan Lingtian's shoulder. After she passed the ice dregs into Duan Lingtian's hand, she was unable to endure it any longer and fainted. Being restrained by the origin stasis powder was equivalent to having her origin energy suppressed, and she'd used a great deal of origin energy earlier, and it had already exceeded the load her body could bear. The little gold mouse's extremely dispirited appearance caused Duan Lingtian's heart to ache, and then he passed the ice shards in his hand to Han Xuanai. Xuanai, take out the spatial ring inside. The spatial ring within the ice shards belonged to the Tang family's patriarch. Yes. Xuanai took the ice shards. With a raise of her hand, the ice on it turned into mist, and an ancient storage ring appeared in her hand. She then handed it back to Duan Lingtian. Let's go. Duan Lingtian called out to Xuanai and took the lead to rise into the air, preparing to leave the Tang family estate. Now the main culprit, the Tang family's patriarch, had been executed, and a group of Tang family's higher-ups had been buried with him. This caused Duan Lingtian's anger to dissipate by quite a bit. Whoosh, whoosh. Duan Lingtian and Han Xuanai came and went like the wind, disappearing from the Tang clan residence in the blink of an eye. And near the place where the two of them were standing just now, in a remote area, many Tang family disciples walked out. The patriarch and second elder are gone just like that? As they looked at the ice shards that covered the ground, their bodies started trembling violently, and their faces were ghastly pale to the extreme. The scene from before was something they would never be able to forget for their entire lifetimes. At that moment they even held their breaths, deeply afraid of being targeted by that devilish young woman and being transformed into an ice sculpture as well. Quickly report this to the ancestor. It was unknown who called out. Subsequently, someone headed towards the depths of the Tang family estate. Even if the ancestor comes, he might not be able to do anything. Those two people are utterly not existences our Tang family can go against. Even the ancestor doesn't have the strength to annihilate the patriarch and all the elders with a flip of his palm. A discerning Tang family disciple couldn't help but sigh. It was exactly as he'd said. When the Tang family's ancestor descended, he saw the ice shards that covered the ground and heard the sequence of events. Even though he was furious to the extreme, he didn't mention the matter of revenge, and he just muttered to himself, "My Tang family's calamity? My Tang family's calamity." A group of people had surrounded the Tang family estate. These people had followed Duan Lingtian and Han Yunshi here. However, they didn't dare barge into the Tang family estate, and they could only wait outside for news. Not long after, they found out the sequence of events from some of the Tang family disciples that left the Tang family estate in panic. That young man and young woman annihilated all the higher-ups of the Tang family, including the patriarch? Only the ancestor of the Tang family is left? Looks like the Tang family is bound to decline. The Tang family's ancestor is already over 100 years old now, and I'm afraid he doesn't have many years left to live. I truly never imagined that the powerful Tang family would fall at the hands of a void initiation stage demon beast in the end. For a moment, everyone sighed with emotion. At the same time, they couldn't help but shudder when they recalled the violet-clothed young man and the yellow-clothed young woman. As far as they were concerned, offending those two people was no different than offending the god of death. Presently, after Duan Lingtian and Han Xuanai left the Tang family estate, they didn't directly return to the inn. Instead, they went to the largest medicinal store in the Eastern Mulberry Empire's imperial city. After buying a pile of medicinal materials, they returned to the inn. "Big brother Lingtian, you're an alchemist as well?" After returning to the room in the inn, Han Xuanai was instantly surprised when she saw Duan Lingtian take out the medicinal materials he prepared and withdraw a cauldron. Yes. Duan Lingtian nodded, and with a raise of his hand, a strand of violet flame lit up at the center of his palm. If one looked carefully, one would be able to see that there was a layer of copper edges around the violet flame, and the copper edges moved rhythmically along with the violet flame. It was extremely peculiar. Violet copper pill fire. Han Xuanai, who stood at the side, couldn't help but be moved. Big brother. Lingtian, you're a grade 3 alchemist? The violet copper pill fire was the grade 3 pill fire that only grade 3 alchemists possessed. When she saw the grade 3 pill fire appear in Duan Lingtian's hand, she felt her heartbeat quicken. It wasn't that she hadn't seen a grade 3 alchemist before, but she'd never seen or heard of such a young grade 3 alchemist. Yes. Duan Lingtian nodded, then he intentionally suppressed the pill fire in his hand, causing the pill fire to weaken. In next to no time, the grade 3 pill fire with violet copper edges gradually turned into a blue grade 4 pill fire. Meanwhile, Duan Lingtian started to refine the medicine. The medicine that Duan Lingtian prepared to refine was precisely the grade 4 spirit cleansing pill. It wasn't that he didn't want to refine the grade 3 spirit cleansing pill, but the medicinal materials were difficult to find. Moreover, his cauldron was only a grade 4 spirit weapon, and was utterly unable to withstand his grade 3 pill fire. So he could only suppress his pill fire to grade 4 and refine the grade 4 spirit cleansing pill. The medicinal materials he went to buy earlier were precisely the medicinal materials required to refine the grade 4 spirit cleansing pill. Fortunately, the medicinal materials for the grade 4 spirit cleansing pill aren't rare. Otherwise, I can only settle for the next best thing and refine the grade 5 spirit cleansing pill. Duan Ling lightly sighed in his heart. Of course, as far as he was concerned, even a grade 5 spirit cleansing pill ought to be sufficient to completely eradicate the origin freezing powder's medicinal strength within Little Gold's body. Whoosh. Duan Lingtian's alchemy technique wasn't inferior to his weapon's refinement technique, and after spending 2 hours of time, he'd successfully refined a grade 4 spirit cleansing pill. After feeding the grade 4 spirit cleansing pill to the unconscious Little Gold mouse, Duan Lingtian pressed his hand onto Little Gold's body, and his origin energy fused into Little Gold's body to dissolve the medicinal strength for her. Meanwhile, Duan Lingtian was able to clearly sense that the origin freezing powder's origin freezing powder was gradually weakening. The medicinal strength of the origin stagnation powder in Xiao Jin's body was gradually losing ground, completely unable to withstand the medicinal strength of the grade 4 spirit cleansing pill. Half an hour later, the medicinal strength of the origin freezing powder was completely swept away by the overbearing medicinal strength of the grade 4 spirit cleansing pill, and it wasn't able to cause any more trouble. Little Gold finally returned to normal. Duan Lingtian's face revealed a smile as he lightly rubbed the little fellow's fluffy back and sighed. This little fellow is really plagued with misfortune. The first time I saw it was at the auction house. This time, it actually went missing because it was captured by someone, and it similarly wanted to be auctioned off. Hiss hiss. Meanwhile, 2 little pythons flashed out from Duan Lingtian's sleeve, one on the left and one on the right, and they descended by the Little Gold mouse's side before stretching out their little heads to lightly rub against the Little Gold mouse. Squeak squeak. After a short moment, the Little Gold mouse awoke, and the first thing she saw was the 2 little pythons that stood by her side. Squeak. Instantly, the Little Gold mouse seemed as if she'd been injected with chicken blood, and she transformed into a golden light that dodged to the side before staring vigilantly at the 2 little pythons. Hiss hiss. The little black snake flicked its tongue as it raised its little head before the Little Gold mouse, and it looked at the Little Gold mouse with a complacent gaze. Squeak. The golden fur on the Little Gold mouse's entire body stood on end, as if her fur had exploded, and the origin energy on her body pulsated. Instantly, 2 ancient horned dragon silhouettes appeared in the sky above her, and they accumulated force while waiting to attack. The little black snake wasn't willing to show weakness, and 4 ancient horned dragon silhouettes appeared in the sky above her. The Little Gold mouse drooped her little head when she saw this scene, and she was slightly dejected. Swoosh. In the next moment, the Little Gold mouse transformed into a golden light that descended onto Duan Lingtian's shoulder, and she was like an aggrieved little wife. Hiss hiss. Whereas the 2 little pythons were extremely complacent now, and they turned around to sweep their tails at the Little Gold mouse. Duan Lingtian couldn't help but burst into laughter when he saw this scene. He couldn't help but recall. At that time, when the strengths of the 2 little pythons were inferior to the Little Gold mouse, The little gold mouse had once turned its back to them and shook its butt to provoke them. But never had he imagined that every dog has its day. Today the strengths of the two little pythons were superior to the little gold mouse. Big brother Ling Tian, little black and little white, bullied me. The little gold mouse's voice that was pleasing to the ear like a little girl entered into Duan Ling Tian's ears, and it was filled with grievance. Little gold, if it wasn't for you irritating them that day, how could they treat you like this today? Duan Ling Tian rolled his eyes at the little gold mouse, and he couldn't help but laugh. Little gold, you're so cute. Right at this moment Han Xuanai walked over and stretched out her hand to grab the little gold mouse. The little gold mouse didn't resist and allowed Han Xuanai to hold it in her hand, and her jade green eyes flickered as she carefully sized up Han Xuanai. Thank you, big sister. Oh, help me take revenge. Suddenly, a wave of a childish voice sounded out abruptly. It caused Duan Ling Tian to be dumbstruck like a wooden chicken. He was able to discern that this wasn't a voice transmission, but a voice that was spoken. You're only at the void initiation stage. You're already able to speak? Han Xuanai stared, her eyes wide open as she looked at the fluffy little gold mouse in her hand, and her beautiful face was dumbstruck. Obviously she was terrified. I'm very formidable. The little gold mouse raised her little head and blinked her jade green eyes, and then she proudly twisted her fluffy and chubby body. Chapter 604. Speak the human tongue? Even Duan Ling Tian was shocked by the little gold mouse now. That day when little gold stepped into the void prying stage, it was already capable of condensing sound with origin energy, and it had already caused him to be extremely shocked. After all, in the memories of Samsara Emperor Wu, only demon beasts at the void initiation stage and above knew how to condense sound with origin energy. As for speaking the human tongue, that was the mark of a void interpretation stage demon beast. Samsara Emperor Wu had experienced 2 lifetimes, yet he'd never seen a demon beast that hadn't stepped into the void interpretation stage that was capable of speaking the human tongue. Yet now, a variant like this had appeared before Duan Ling Tian's eyes. According to the memories of Samsara Emperor Wu, ordinary void initiation stage demon beasts are capable of condensing sound with origin energy. Void interpretation stage demon beasts are capable of speaking the human tongue. Void transformation stage demon beasts are capable of taking human form. Duan Ling Tian stared fixedly at the little gold mouse that sat on Han Xuanai's hand in enjoyment, and his heart shook. But little gold, it was capable of condensing sound with origin energy when it was at the void prying stage. Now that it's broken through to the void initiation stage, it's capable of speaking the human tongue. If it continues according to this pattern, then wouldn't it be able to take human form when it steps into the void interpretation stage? When he thought up to here, Duan Ling Tian couldn't help but gasp. Xuanai. Duan Ling Tian looked at Han Xuanai and asked, when did little black and little white start to be able to communicate with you via voice transmission? Void initiation stage. Han Xuanai said, practically all void initiation stage demon beasts are capable of condensing sound with origin energy. This is extremely normal. But little gold being able to speak the human tongue is something that I'm slightly puzzled about. As expected, Duan Ling Tian sighed in his heart. Little black and little white were like ordinary demon beasts, and they were only capable of condensing sound with origin energy when they were at the void initiation stage. But little gold exceeded his expectations. Xuanai, there's something you don't know. When little gold had just broken through to the void prying stage that day, it was already capable of communicating with me via voice transmission. Duan Ling Tian said. What? Han Xuanai was stunned and was shocked once again. She stared at the little gold mouse in her hand and carefully sized it up. This little fellow is so peculiar? If this continues, wouldn't it be able to transform into a human and directly become a demon when it reaches the void interpretation stage? Unfathomable emptiness stage, yeah. I've never heard of one before. At this point Han Xuanai shook her head. Her beautiful eyes were filled with confusion. Even she couldn't figure out why little gold was so peculiar. In that case this little fellow is really different from the rest. Duan Ling Tian glanced at the little gold mouse and sighed. Creak, creak, the little gold mouse cried out twice, then looked at the 2 little pythons. Both of you don't know how to speak. Both of you aren't as formidable as me? Duan Ling Tian shook his head and laughed bitterly when he saw the little gold mouse actually daring to provoke little black and little white. Whoosh, whoosh. 2 bolts of black and white flashed by, and it terrified the little gold mouse to the point of curling up in Han Xuanai's hand. Gentlemen, gentlemen, most, 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 moves. The little gold mouse's words entered into the ears of Duan Lingtian and Han Xuanai, and it caused them to be unable to help but be stunned, and then they chuckled as they looked at each other. Where did this little fellow learn these words? Little Gold's luck isn't bad. This time we can bring it along to the Sword Monarch's treasure. Perhaps there's a fortuitous encounter within it. Han Xuanai said. Duan Lingtian nodded. In the next 2 days, Duan Lingtian and Han Xuanai didn't go out, and they passed the time in the inn. Unknowingly, the agreed date with the other possessors of the jade swords arrived as scheduled. On the other hand, Duan Lingtian and Han Xuanai had left for Pheasant Ridge as well. Pheasant Ridge was situated north of the Eastern Mulberry Empire's imperial city, and it was a vast mountain ridge that occupied an area of a few tens of times the size of the Eastern Mulberry Empire's imperial city. Big Brother Lingtian, once we converge with them and arrive at the Sword Monarch's treasure and open it with the 9 jade swords, should I freeze all of them into popsicles? In that way, there wouldn't be anyone competing with us for the things within the Sword Monarch's treasure. Han Xuanai's beautiful eyes flashed as she revealed a devilish smile. Even though Duan Lingtian had this thought since long ago. But when he heard Han Xuanai speak of it now, he still shuddered slightly and his heart shook. This little girl, Xuanai, is really a complete little she-devil. Fortunately, we're friends and not enemies. There's no need. Duan Lingtian shook his head and rejected Han Xuanai's plan. During these past 2 days, besides cultivating, he'd also considered many things related to the Sword Monarch's treasure. The Sword Monarch's treasure was undoubtedly left behind by a sword cultivator martial monarch. This point could be heard from the name. Whereas the treasure vaults left behind by ordinary martial monarchs and Emperor Wu were mostly games they intentionally created. Perhaps there were many treasures within, yet there would surely be corresponding tests. All those years ago, Emperor Wu of Samsara had once played a similar game. There was once when he intentionally opened up a treasure vault, and in the end, all those that entered it died. When he thought up to here, Duan Lingtian felt a slight chill run down his spine. In the eyes of those formidable martial monarchs and Emperor Wu, even an existence at the void transformation stage was no different than an ant. The death of an ant was unable to affect their state of mind. To them, the games they created were only existences for their entertainment. Xuanai, think about it. Even if there are treasures within the Sword Monarch's treasure, it would surely not be so easy to obtain. We can take less risks if they go in with us and lead the way. Duan Lingtian said to Han Xuanai, if we really encounter any treasures within, then it wouldn't be too late for you to make a move and seize it at that time. At any rate, with your strength, there ought to be no one amongst them that's capable of comparing to you. Big Brother Lingtian, you've thought it through thoroughly? Alright, we'll do it this way. Duan Lingtian's suggestion obtained Han Xuanai's agreement, and an evil smile appeared on Han Xuanai's face. I love seizing things the most. When I was young, I often seized Shuiyi's toys. Shuiyi. Duan Lingtian was stunned when he heard Han Xuanai. Who's that? Han Xuanai's eyes were filled with a cunning expression. She's my Uncle Mu's daughter, and she's half a month older than me. Since we were young, I loved seizing things from her the most, whereas she would cry loudly every time. Duan Lingtian was speechless. He felt a moment of silence for Mu Shuiyi. Subsequently, Duan Lingtian withdrew his jade sword and fused his voice transmission into it to get in touch with the possessors of the other jade swords. Squeak squeak, the little gold mouse stuck its head out from Duan Lingtian's sleeve and cried out twice before curiously sizing up the surroundings. After 2 days of recovery, the little gold mouse was in high spirits. Hiss hiss, whereas the 2 little pythons stuck their heads out from under Han Xuanai's sleeve as well, and they flicked their tongues as they didn't forget to look provocatively at the little gold mouse. 2 idiots that don't know how to speak. The little gold mouse's childish voice was finally coherent now. However, its provocative words had instead infuriated the 2 little pythons. If it wasn't for Han Xuanai calming the 2 little pythons, they'd probably have already pounced over and fought the little gold mouse. Little gold, you can't continue like this. If you continue like this, then I won't take care of you next time, and I'll make little black and little white properly train with you. Duan Lingtian glared at the little gold mouse, and it terrified the little gold mouse to the point it mischievously stuck out its tongue before burrowing back into his sleeve, and it didn't make any further movements. Little black, little white, both of you hide first. Duan Lingtian spoke to the 2 little pythons, then he called out to Han Xuanai. Xuanai, let's go over there. Duan Lingtian and Han Xuanai headed directly north of Pheasant Ridge. When they arrived above a ravine in Pheasant Ridge that was filled with the fragrance of flowers, Duan Lingtian looked down at the ravine beneath his feet. Xuanai, let's go down. This is the place I agreed upon with them. Subsequently, Duan Lingtian and Han Xuanai descended into the ravine. Presently there were already 4 people waiting within the ravine. The 4 people were divided into 2 groups. One of the groups was the combination of 2 middle-aged men in embroidered clothes. The other group was the combination of a robust middle-aged man and an azure-clothed old man. At this moment, all 4 of them were dumbstruck when they saw Duan Lingtian and Han Xuanai appear. A young man that was 25 years old and a young girl that was 15 or 16 years old. Is this a pair of brother and sister that are lost? The 4 of them didn't think that the 2 of them were the possessors of one of the jade swords. Cute little girl, are you and your brother lost? The robust middle-aged man took a step forward and looked at Han Xuanai as he asked with a light smile. It was like an adult coaxing a child. It's you. Han Xuanai hadn't reacted when the nearby Duan Lingtian had already exclaimed in a low voice. You are. The robust middle-aged man couldn't help but be stunned when he heard Duan Lingtian, and he couldn't help but size up Duan Lingtian from top to bottom. Brother, do I know you? Even though you don't know me, but we seem to have communicated more than once or twice before this, right? It wouldn't be that you can't even recognize my voice, right? Duan Lingtian's eyes narrowed as he spoke slowly. When the robust middle-aged man spoke, he'd recognized the voice of the robust middle-aged man. It was precisely the possessor of the jade sword that he'd first contacted that day, and the owner of the sonorous voice. It's you? The robust middle-aged man finally recovered from his shock, and he sized up Duan Lingtian as if he'd seen a ghost as he laughed bitterly. I really never imagined that you're so young. When he spoke up to hear, the robust middle-aged man glanced at Han Xuanai who stood by Duan Lingtian's side, and he was speechless. This fellow brought a young girl over. Does he think the Sword Monarch's treasure is a game? I'm Dong Ming, what's your name? The robust middle-aged man asked. Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian said. So it's Brother Lingtian? Brother Lingtian, this is Elder Hu, he's a senior of mine. Meanwhile, the robust middle-aged man introduced the green-clothed old man by his side to Duan Lingtian. Elder Hu. Duan Lingtian smiled lightly as he greeted the old man. Elder Hu only nodded lightly and then he paid no further attention to Duan Lingtian. Obviously he didn't take Duan Lingtian seriously. Duan Lingtian didn't mind. After all, his age was obvious and it was indeed insufficient to draw the attention of others. Chapter 605. Duan Lingtian wanted to restrain her, yet it was already too late. This little girl, Xuanai, had always been outspoken and unforgiving. Little girl, be careful that trouble comes from a loose tongue. The green-clothed old man's face sank slightly as he suddenly looked at Han Xuanai, and killing intent flashed within his muddy eyes. Trouble comes from a loose tongue? Old bastard I. How could Han Xuanai endure it when she heard the old man's threat, and she instantly exploded with rage. Xuanai. Meanwhile, Duan Lingtian stretched out his hand to grab Han Xuanai's hand, and he lightly shook his head to her as he said via voice transmission at the same time. There's no need to lower yourself to his level. Moreover, this old fellow's strength isn't bad. We'll just seize whatever treasure he finds after he enters the Sword Monarch's treasure. Killing him now isn't worth it. Duan Lingtian's words caused Han Xuanai's expression to ease up, and she grunted. Old bastard, this young miss won't fuss about it with you out of consideration for big brother Lingtian. At the same time, traces of an excited sheen were mixed within Han Xuanai's eyes, and she said via voice transmission to Duan Lingtian, Big brother Lingtian, you're right. We'll seize the treasure from this old bastard after he finds it, and we'll kill him after angering him to the point of spitting blood. Han Xuanai's voice transmission caused Duan Lingtian to feel a chill run down his spine, and he couldn't help but observe a moment of silence for the green-clothed old man. This old fellow could offend anyone, yet he dared to offend this little she-devil. You. The old man was angered to the point his face went grim and his body trembled when he was reprimanded by a young girl at the age of 15 or 16. When he saw the old man about to flare up, the nearby Dong Ming hurriedly restrained him. Elder Hu, since this young miss has already taken a step back, then why continue fuss about it with her? Forget it. Umph. Elder Hu grunted coldly, and he listened to Dong Ming in the end and didn't flare up again. Duan Lingtian glanced indifferently at the old man. The old man's cultivation was unable to conceal itself before his spiritual force. This old man was in existence at the 8th level of the Void Initiation stage. In terms of strength, it was the same as the Grand Elder of the Tang family who was frozen by Han Xuanai and killed by Duan Lingtian 2 days ago. At this moment, the valley regained its peace. The two middle-aged men in embroidered clothes standing at the side were now sizing up Duan Lingtian and Han Xuanai from head to toe. Their eyes revealed a strange luster that was difficult to distinguish. No one knew what he was thinking. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. One figure after another descended from the top of the valley. Not long after, the remaining 5 groups of people arrived as scheduled. These people were all in groups of 2 or 2. Now, when the other 5 groups of people appeared, they couldn't help but be stunned when they saw the combination of Duan Lingtian and Han Xuanai. They are also Jade Sword owners? For a moment, many people couldn't help but be curious. Youngsters, do you really have Jade Swords in your hands? In next to no time, someone looked at Duan Lingtian and asked with a doubtful expression. Duan Lingtian didn't say anything, and with a raise of his hand, he withdrew the jade sword that belonged to him from his spatial ring before waving it before the person that doubted him. Instantly, that person was speechless. Young man, if I was you, I'd look for a senior to go with you to the Sword Monarch's treasure. You're truly too rash. A green-clothed old man that was comparatively kinder shook his head and sighed. The dangers of the Sword Monarch's treasure was something no one could predict. It was precisely because of this that no one dared underestimate the dangers within the Sword Monarch's treasure. The unknown was undoubtedly the most terrifying. Under these circumstances, the stronger one's strength was, the higher the chances one had of surviving and obtaining a fortuitous encounter of one's own. Thank you for the reminder, senior. Duan Lingtian smiled gratefully towards the green-clothed old man's reminder. But I know what I'm doing, so there's no need for senior to worry. As the others brought jade swords? Meanwhile, another person withdrew a jade sword and asked the others. For a time, the other 7 groups of people each withdrew a jade sword and displayed it before the eyes of everyone. 9 jade swords were gathered together. Right at this moment, Duan Lingtian noticed that the jade sword in his hand had suddenly started trembling, and it seemed as if it had received the call of something, and it urgently wanted to leave his hand. On the other hand, the jade swords in the hands of the other 8 people were more or less the same. The 9 jade swords were trembling now, and every single jade sword pointed towards the same direction. Precisely speaking, it was at the same point. According to legend, once the 9 swords combine into one, they'll be able to transform into a completely new jade sword that leads us to the Sword Monarch's treasure. Meanwhile, Dong Ming, who held a jade sword, spoke out. Everyone, how about we combine the 9 swords now and look for the Sword Monarch's treasure together? As soon as he finished speaking, Dong Ming glanced at the surroundings. I have no objections. Duan Lingtian shrugged with an indifferent expression. I have no objections as well. I have no objections. For a time, besides Dong Ming who'd made this suggestion, another 5 people that held jade swords shook their heads. Including Duan Lingtian and Dong Ming, a total of 7 people agreed to directly combine the 9 swords and search for the Sword Monarch's treasure. Only the other 2 people that held jade swords hadn't made a stand. One of them was one of the 2 middle-aged men that had arrived at the gorge since long ago. The other person was an emaciated old man with a short figure and a pair of cross-eyed eyes. Meanwhile, Duan Lingtian noticed that the middle-aged man and emaciated old man had suddenly glanced at each other before nodding at the same time. They seemed to have come to some sort of agreement. Subsequently, Duan Lingtian noticed. The 2 middle-aged men, the emaciated old man, and the gray-clothed old woman by the emaciated old man's side looked at him at the same time. Precisely speaking, they were looking at him and Han Xuanai who was by his side. What do all of you want to do? Dong Ming's expression went slightly grim. Nothing. I just feel that some people don't have the qualifications to hold jade swords. Why don't you hand over the jade swords and give up 2 spots? The middle-aged man that held the jade sword shook his head as he looked at Duan Lingtian. It was as if he was narrating something that wasn't important. Exactly. The emaciated old man that similarly held a jade sword nodded in agreement. I have a friend in the Eastern Mulberry Empire's Imperial City. I originally didn't intend to bring him along. But since there are 2 spots left now, I intend to call him along. He's in existence at the 7th level of the Void Initiation stage, and if he enters the Sword Monarch's treasure with us, it'll be extremely helpful to us. The emaciated old man's words caused many people that had grim expressions earlier to heave a sigh of relief. Yeah. They didn't know what dangers were within the Sword Monarch's treasure. But they could be sure of one thing. The stronger one's strength was, the higher one's chances of survival would be. For a time, the gazes of most people descended onto Duan Lingtian and Han Xuanai. Perhaps, in their eyes, even if a violet-clothed young man around the age of 25 and a yellow-clothed young woman around the age of 15 or 16 entered the Sword Monarch's treasure, they would be of no help to them and would only drag them down. But even though the others felt like this, they didn't speak out and only watched coldly from the sidelines as the situation developed. Dong Ming was included amongst these people. After a short moment, Duan Lingtian and Han Xuanai were surrounded by the middle-aged man, emaciated old man and gray-clothed old woman in four corners. Four gazes stared fiercely at the jade sword in Duan Lingtian's hand. "Kid, if you hand over the jade sword now and leave right away, we can spare your life." "Exactly. So long as you hand over the jade sword and give up those 2 spots, there's no enmity between us, so there's no need for us to make a move against you. Kid, put down the jade sword and fuck off if you're sensible." The 4 of them looked at Duan Lingtian, and their words were filled with threats. The atmosphere within the gorge was ready to fight. Of course, there were another 5 groups of people that were watching the show. Brother Lingtian. Dong Ming, who stood nearby, frowned, and he was unable to continue watching in the end, so he took a step forward with the intention of rescuing Duan Lingtian. Dong Ming. Meanwhile, the green-clothed old man by Dong Ming's side stopped Dong Ming. "Don't get involved in this mess. Otherwise I won't forgive you." Dong Ming's figure stiffened as he glanced at Duan Lingtian with guilt, and then he sighed before withdrawing his footsteps in the end. This scene was clearly noticed by Duan Lingtian. At the same time that warmth arose in his heart, he couldn't help but be slightly enraged. Of course, his rage was directed towards the green-clothed old man. "Brother Lingtian, give the jade sword to them. No matter what's within the Sword Monarch's treasure, it's all fake. Only your own life is real and it's the most important." Dong Ming's voice transmission sounded out by Duan Lingtian's ears. Dong Ming wanted to persuade Duan Lingtian to give up the jade sword and leave. Duan Lingtian naturally knew that Dong Ming had good intentions. "No matter what, amongst all the people present, only you have the intention to help me and persuade me. I, Duan Lingtian, will remember this favor." Duan Lingtian nodded to Dong Ming, and then he sent a voice transmission before changing the topic. "But not just anyone has the ability to seize the jade sword in my hand." Dong Ming was stunned. It was difficult for him to imagine where exactly this young man's confidence came from. No matter how strong the natural talent of a young man that looked to be around the age of 25 was, at most, a martial artist that had just entered the void initiation stage. As for the other young girl that was around the age of 15 or 16, her ability to fly had already shocked him. As far as he was concerned, the young girl was at most a genius martial artist that had just broken through to the void prying stage. "Kid, I'll give you another 5 breaths of time to consider. At that time, if you still haven't put down the jade sword in your hand, then you and this little girl will die for sure." The middle-aged man in embroidered clothes that held the jade sword threatened with a grim voice. "You're still young and have a great life ahead of you. There's no need to lose your life for a jade sword." The emaciated old man looked at Duan Lingtian with an expressionless face, and even though his tone was flat, it concealed killing intent. Even when facing the threat of another, Duan Lingtian's expression was still calm as before, and his expression wouldn't change even if Mount Tai collapsed before him. Subsequently, Duan Lingtian looked at Han Xuanai, who was by his side, and asked with a smile. "Xuanai, someone wants to seize our jade sword and seize our position to enter the Sword Monarch's treasure. What do you think we should do?" No one noticed that early on when the 2 middle-aged men in embroidered clothes, the emaciated old man, and the gray-clothed old woman had surrounded them. Chapter 606. Now, when she heard Duan Lingtian's question, Han Xuanai's beautiful face revealed a smile that could turn the world upside down. "Big brother Lingtian, what do you think?" Han Xuanai looked at Duan Lingtian and seemed to have the intention of allowing Duan Lingtian to decide. From the beginning until the end, Han Xuanai didn't even look the 4 people that surrounded them in the eye. Perhaps, in her eyes, the 4 of them weren't worthy of her looking at them in the eye. "I think we can give them a taste of their own medicine. For example, let them make a choice. Either put down the jade sword and live or be stubborn and die." Duan Lingtian spoke indifferently, and as he finished speaking, his gaze swept past the 4 people that surrounded him and Han Xuanai. Duan Lingtian had only just finished speaking. The surrounding spectators couldn't help but be stunned. Has this young man gone mad? He's obviously courting death. No one looked favorably upon Duan Lingtian. Dong Ming frowned. He originally wanted to say something, Yet when he saw the confidence that shot out from Duan Lingtian's eyes, he hesitated for a moment instead. Where did Brother Ling Tian get such confidence from? Dong Ming's heart was filled with curiosity. Subconsciously he had a strong intuition. He kept having the feeling that Duan Lingtian's confidence wasn't baseless. On the other hand, the four people that surrounded Duan Lingtian, including the two middle-aged men in embroidered clothes, the emaciated old man and the gray-clothed old woman, were stunned for a moment when they heard Duan Lingtian. The emaciated old man was the first to recover from his shock, and he said angrily, "Looks like all of you really don't want to hand over the jade sword. Since it's like this, then I'll send all of you on your way." As soon as the emaciated old man finished speaking, he flashed out like a hawk to pounce towards Duan Lingtian. Vast origin energy condensed into form in his hand to transform into palm prints that covered the sky, and they formed a heaven-encompassing net that enveloped down towards Duan Lingtian. In the sky, 10 lifelike ancient horned dragon silhouettes appeared. 7th level of the Void Initiation Stage. Duan Lingtian raised his eyebrows. Right at this moment, a cold snort suddenly sounded. It was Han Xuanai, who was standing beside Duan Lingtian, who had made her move. She raised her hand, and a biting cold wind swept out to meet the skinny old man. As for the skinny old man, he instantly stopped in his tracks. His entire body turned into an ice sculpture that was connected to the earth, and he remained motionless. As for the palm imprints that filled the sky, they were also destroyed by the extremely cold wind and disappeared without a trace. Within the valley there was a deathly silence. Everyone stared blankly at the scene in front of them, completely dumbfounded. For a moment, only the sound of a gentle breeze could be heard in the valley. A dignified 7th-level Void Initiation Stage expert was frozen into an ice sculpture with a raise of the hand by a 15 or 16-year-old young girl. "Oh man." The gray-clothed old woman's expression changed drastically. She cried out in grief and pounced towards the ice sculpture, wanting to save the old man who was frozen inside. "Stop." Meanwhile, the expressions of the two middle-aged men went grim, and they hurriedly shouted out. But unfortunately their reminder was still too late. When the gray-clothed old woman's hand touched the ice sculpture, crack! Numerous hideous cracks instantly split open on the ice sculpture, and they were like spiderwebs that extended towards the surroundings. When the cracks extended to the limit, bang! The ice sculpture transformed into countless pieces of ice that crashed to the ground. Whereas the body of the skinny old man that was frozen within shattered into pieces along with the ice sculpture. Even though the old man was dead, he didn't leave behind even a trace of blood. This strange scene caused the crowd to gasp when they finally came back to their senses. Old man, the old woman was stunned, completely stunned. She killed her husband? "I'll kill you." Under his extreme rage, the old woman lost all reason and pounced towards Han Xuanai without regard for her life. The outcome was obvious. The old woman had transformed into an ice sculpture as well, and she stood there with a strange posture. Along with Han Xuanai grunting coldly, she lightly raised her hand to descend onto the ice sculpture, and she instantly shattered the ice sculpture of the old woman into countless pieces. The old woman had followed in the footsteps of her husband. What a terrifying ice concept. Dong Ming's pupils constricted as his heartbeat sped up. Now he finally understood why Duan Lingtian would be so confident. So it turned out that there was such an expert by Duan Lingtian's side. Killing two 7th-level Void Initiation Stage martial artists was simply as simple as killing chickens or cutting grass. If he didn't see it with his own two eyes, he would find it difficult to believe. A young woman that looked to be at most 15 or 16 years old actually possessed such a terrifying cultivation. Most importantly, the young woman had attacked twice, yet from the beginning until the end, the energy of the heaven and earth hadn't completely condensed into an ancient horned dragon silhouette when she'd already stopped. It caused others to be unable to see through her exact cultivation. Demon. In the next moment, a thought suddenly appeared in Dong Ming's mind. After this thought arose, it was impossible to get rid of. Void transformation stage demon beasts were capable of taking human form, and they were called demons. This was something that was common knowledge. Most importantly, after Void transformation stage demon beasts took human form, they had a chance to shape their outer appearance on their own. According to rumor, some demons with strange tempers liked to transform themselves into the appearance of human children. In the foreign lands, it was very likely that a human child that looked to be 7 or 8 years old was a Void transformation stage demon, and their strength was extremely terrifying. It wasn't only Dong Ming, there were many others that had similar thoughts. The body of Elder Hu that stood by Dong Ming's side started trembling imperceptibly. He couldn't help but feel a lingering fear in his heart when he thought of the conflict he'd had with this young woman earlier. If he really dared make a move at that time, then the consequences were obvious. The young woman killed 7th level Void Initiation stage martial artists like cutting grass or killing chickens. He didn't think that he was much stronger than a 7th level Void Initiation stage martial artist. Along with the gazes of Duan Lingtian and Han Xuanai moving over, it descended onto the two middle-aged men in embroidered clothes that surrounded them. The gazes of the others descended onto the two of them in unison. At this moment, their gazes were filled with pity. You two are the people that completely slaughtered all the higher-ups of the Tang clan, including the Tang clan's patriarch and grand elder 2 days ago? The young man in embroidered clothes that held the jade sword had recalled the incident that gave rise to much discussion in the Eastern Mulberry Empire's imperial city 2 days ago when Han Xuanai made a move. Now he had no choice but to link that incident with the yellow-clothed young woman before him. Only because their methods were too similar. I remember now. One of the spectating old men couldn't help but exclaim in shock. I heard that a terrifying young woman that had comprehended ice concept made a move 2 days ago to transform all the higher-ups of the Tang clan into ice sculptures and killed them. So it was her. I've heard of that incident as well. Supposedly, that young woman killed 8th level Void Initiation stage martial artists with a raise of her hand. Looks like someone is going to suffer misfortune. The spectating people whispered in discussion. They didn't have the slightest bit of sympathy towards the two middle-aged men that went ghastly pale and shivered. At the bottom of it all, this incident was brought about by the two middle-aged men, and they couldn't blame anyone else. One had to pay for what they did. I'll give you the jade sword, I'll give you the jade sword. Don't kill me, don't kill me. At this moment, the middle-aged man that held the jade sword had taken the jade sword to be a hot potato, and he hurriedly threw it at Han Xuanai's feet as he spoke in panic. I'll give you the jade sword, we'll give up the chance to enter the Sword Monarch's treasure. We'll leave right now, we'll leave right now. The other middle-aged man in embroidered clothes glanced at Han Xuanai with fear, and when he noticed that Han Xuanai was expressionless, he took a deep breath before the origin energy beneath his feet skyrocketed, and he shot into the sky. The middle-aged man in embroidered clothes in front instantly followed up when he saw his companion about to leave. Big brother Ling Tian gave all of you a chance, but all of you didn't cherish it properly. Han Xuanai spoke slowly with a voice that was pleasant to the ear like an aureole, yet when it entered into the ears of everyone present, it was no different than the voice of a devil. Whoosh. Along with Han Xuanai raising her hand, strong winds that were icy cold to the extreme appeared once more and charged into the sky. Instantly, the bodies of the two middle-aged men that had just soared into the sky froze before transforming into two ice sculptures that floated in midair, and they slowly glowed under the rays of the scorching sun. On the other hand, the origin energy on their bodies was ceaselessly suppressed. After a short moment, their origin energy was completely exhausted. The two ice sculptures lost the support of their origin energy and crashed to the ground, shattering into two piles of shattered ice. The gorge was deathly silent once more. Besides Duan Lingtian, the gazes of everyone that looked at Han Xuanai were filled with terror, terror that came from the soul. The ability of this young woman had completely shocked them. If she's a human, she's at least a void interpretation stage expert. Or perhaps she's a demon that has stepped into the void transformation stage. This was the unanimous thought in the hearts of everyone present. Duan Lingtian took 2 steps forward and searched for a while at the place where the ice sculpture of the emaciated old man shattered, and then he found the jade sword that belonged to the old man. The jade sword was completely intact. Duan Lingtian wasn't surprised by this. No matter what, this jade sword was the key to the Sword Monarch's treasure, and it was something left behind by the Martial Monarch. Unless it was an expert at the Martial Monarch stage or above, it would probably be as difficult as ascending the heavens for an ordinary martial artist to destroy it. Subsequently, Duan Lingtian picked up the jade sword that was by Han Xuanai's feet. For a time, there were 3 jade swords in Duan Lingtian's hand. Everyone, please withdraw your jade swords and allow the 9 swords to combine into one to lead us to the Sword Monarch's treasure. Duan Lingtian's gaze swept past the remaining 6 groups of people. These people were all people that agreed to combine the 9 swords earlier. Earlier, they didn't refuse allowing the 9 swords to combine into one. Now that they'd witnessed Han Xuanai's extremely terrifying strength, they didn't dare dally and released the jade swords in their hands. On the other hand, Duan Lingtian released the 3 jade swords in his hand as well. Instantly, the 9 jade swords charged into the sky and collided together. A strong light flashed, and it caused everyone to be unable to refrain from instinctively narrowing their eyes. When everyone including Duan Lingtian opened their eyes once more, a completely new jade sword had appeared before their eyes. This was a jade sword that flickered with jade-green flowing lights, and it emitted waves of fierce aura. Swish! The jade sword trembled and transformed into a streak of green light. Then it flew straight towards the south. Instantly, numerous figures transformed into flowing lights that chased after it. Let's go as well. Chapter 607. Big Brother Lingtian, wait. They'd just flown out for a while when Han Xuanai called out to Duan Lingtian. Just as Duan Lingtian was stunned, a voice rang out. Big guy. Han Xuanai's voice had already spread out far and wide, and it swept through the entire Pheasant Ridge. Even though Pheasant Ridge was huge, Han Xuanai's voice that contained origin energy still clearly spread out to every corner. Swoosh. In next to no time, an exceedingly enormous figure charged into the sky and appeared before Duan Lingtian's eyes. It was precisely the three-eyed flame tiger. I almost forgot about this big fellow. Duan Lingtian started laughing. Subsequently, Duan Lingtian and Han Xuanai sat on the back of the three-eyed flame tiger, allowing the three-eyed flame tiger to hasten on their journey. With the three-eyed flame tiger's speed, it didn't take long for it to catch up to the 12 people in front. When these 12 people saw a demon beast that was like an enormous mountain catching up to them at first, they thought that they'd alarmed this demon beast, and all of them seemed as if they were facing a great enemy. Brother Lingtian. Dong Ming's gaze was sharp, and he noticed Duan Lingtian on the back of the demon beast with a single glance, and he was instantly slightly surprised. Duan Lingtian lightly smiled and nodded to Dong Ming. Come on up. With this big fellow as your mount, it's much faster than flying by yourself. However, at this moment, Dong Ming seemed as if his acupuncture points had been hit, and he stared blankly at the enormous beast before him. Brother Lingtian, this demon beast. It wouldn't be the empire-guarding demon beast of our Darkstone Empire, the three-eyed flame tiger, right? Dong Ming fiercely swallowed a mouthful of saliva and asked with difficulty. Exactly, it's him. Duan Lingtian nodded. Dong Ming was greatly shocked in his heart when he heard this. As a member of the Darkstone Empire, he naturally knew what the three-eyed flame tiger meant to the Darkstone Empire. In the Darkstone Empire, the strongest was none other than King Yong. Below King Yong was the 9th level Void Initiation Stage Demon Beast, the three-eyed flame tiger, and the few 9th level Void Initiation Stage experts of the Imperial family. The Empire-guarding demon beast of the Darkstone Empire? Instantly many people were dumbstruck. The Darkstone Empire's guardian demon beasts were all abducted by them? Some people couldn't help but have this thought. In their opinion, that yellow-clothed girl was like a little demoness. It wasn't strange for her to do anything exaggerated. Moreover, with the yellow-clothed young woman's strength, she was utterly unafraid of the Darkstone Empire. Even if he abducted the Darkstone Empire's divine beast protector, the Darkstone Empire's royal family wouldn't even dare to fart. Under Duan Lingtian's call, Dong Ming landed on the back of the three-eyed flame tiger. Elder Hu. At this moment, Dong Ming called out to the azure-clothed old man, wanting the old man to ascend onto the incomparably spacious back of the three-eyed flame tiger. However, the green-clothed old man shook his head and refused Dong Ming's good intentions. What a joke. Just now he had a conflict with the two of them. At this time, not to mention that he was too embarrassed to sit on the other party's demonic beast, even if he shamelessly sat on it, he was afraid that he would be blasted off by the other party. He could feel the hostility of the yellow-clothed girl towards him. A day's time passed very quickly. However, the speed of the jade sword did not slow down in the slightest. Where exactly is the Sword Monarch's treasure? After 3 days and 3 nights, some people were unable to restrain themselves. Even if one was made of iron, flying for 3 days and 3 nights would more or less cause one to feel a trace of exhaustion. Many people looked at Duan Lingtian's group of 3 that sat upright on the back of the three-eyed flame tiger, and their eyes were filled with envy, and they wished for nothing more than to be able to ascend and allow the three-eyed flame tiger to give them a ride. But they didn't have the guts. Who knew if they did this, the yellow-clothed young woman would freeze them into ice sculptures as well. When they recalled the 4 people that had died at the hands of the young woman 3 days ago, they still had a lingering fear in their hearts. Who? Duan Lingtian, who sat on the back of the three-eyed flame tiger, awoke from his cultivation, and his gaze flickered. My cultivation has finally approached the bottleneck before the 2nd level of the Void Initiation stage. It's time to consume the Spirit Void fruit. As Duan Lingtian muttered to himself, a crystalline and translucent spirit fruit appeared in his hand. A dense fragrance spread out. Spirit void fruit? Han Xuan'ai looked at the spirit fruit at the first possible moment, and although she was slightly surprised, she didn't take it seriously. The spirit void fruit was of no use to her now. But Han Xuan'ai not taking the spirit void fruit seriously didn't mean that the others didn't take it seriously as well. At this moment, everyone including Dong Ming stared at the spirit void fruit in Duan Lingtian's hand with burning gazes. If it wasn't for them being afraid of the young woman's terrifying strength, they'd probably have swarmed over long ago and seized the spirit void fruit in Duan Lingtian's hand. The spirit void fruit was a spirit fruit used exclusively by void initiation stage martial artists. Even if it was a 9th level void initiation stage martial artist that consumed it, it would still be extremely helpful. Besides Han Xuan'ai, all the people present were void initiation stage martial artists, and all of them had covetous eyes when they saw the spirit void fruit in Duan Lingtian's hand. Squeak squeak, hiss hiss, presently even little gold, little black and little white that were hidden under the sleeves of Duan Lingtian and Han Xuan'ai were slightly restless. Under the gazes of everyone present, Duan Lingtian stuffed the spirit void fruit in his hand into his mouth and swallowed it in a few mouthfuls. A warm flow followed along his throat and flowed into his body. He was able to clearly sense the vast medicinal strength contained within the warm flow. This spirit void fruit was precisely obtained from the Darkhan dynasty's Milky Way city's treasure-gathering pavilion's master, Xiang Ying, and he didn't consume it earlier because he was waiting for an opportunity. Although the medicinal strength of the spirit void fruit couldn't be considered to be top amongst the spirit fruits used by void initiation stage martial artists. But to a first-level void initiation stage martial artist, it was undoubtedly extremely strong. After he broke through to the void initiation stage, Duan Lingtian had a plan. Once his cultivation at the first level of the void initiation stage stabilized and advanced a step further, he would consume the spirit void fruit and strive to break through 2 levels in one go in a short period of time. Directly step into the 3rd level of the void initiation stage. If it wasn't for this, Duan Lingtian would have consumed the spirit void fruit when he just broken through to the 1st level of the void initiation stage that day. As the saying goes, good steel should be used on the blade, and Duan Lingtian was precisely waiting for this moment. After consuming the spirit void fruit, Duan Lingtian closed his eyes and started to meditate and cultivate. As for chasing after the jade sword and heading to the sword monarch's treasure, there was utterly no need for him to worry with the three-eyed flame tiger as his mount. What he could do now was cultivate seriously and see if he had the time to smoothly break through to the 3rd level of the void initiation stage before entering the sword monarch's treasure. 9 Dragons War Sovereign Technique, Earth Dragon Form. Unknowingly, Duan Lingtian's entire body and mind were immersed in cultivation. Time silently flowed by. The jade sword that led the way ahead was like a machine that didn't know exhaustion, and it flew day after day. A month of time passed in the blink of an eye. Meanwhile, Duan Lingtian, who sat cross-legged on the back of the three-eyed flame tiger, finally moved. Duan Lingtian, who'd cultivated for an entire month, opened his eyes that were like dazzling stars, and at the same time, he spat out a mouthful of foul air. Finally, a brilliant smile bloomed on Duan Lingtian's face. 3rd level of the void initiation stage. He'd broken through. As he felt the vast origin energy in his body, and especially when he saw the nascent soul within his dantian that was becoming more and more illusory, Duan Lingtian's mood couldn't help but surge. The increase in his strength also gave Duan Lingtian a strong sense of confidence. After all, his confidence had been struck black and blue by Han Xuan'ai on more than one occasion before this. But now that he'd broken through to the 3rd level of the void initiation stage, he'd gotten over it. Every single person had their own fortuitous encounters. Just like Han Xuan'ai. The reason why she had such a terrifying cultivation was because of her extraordinary background. In the past, I'd underestimated the power behind Xuan'ai. Duan Lingtian's gaze descended onto Han Xuan'ai, who sat nearby and cultivated with her eyes closed, and he sighed in his heart. At that time, I thought that the power Xuan'ai belonged to would at most provide her with various spirit fruits. Now, based on the ice concept that Xuan'ai possesses, the power she belongs to might even have the conditions to provide her with concept fragments. Concept fragments. Things that were even more precious than spirit fruits in Cloud Continent. When the martial artists of Cloud Continent were at the Void Realm, they comprehended force and concept. Amongst them, force was only the foundation of concept. At the Void initiation stage, one comprehended concept. According to the memories of Samsara Emperor Wu, Duan Lingtian was deeply aware of it. The concept that void initiation stage martial artists came into contact with was actually only void initiation concept, and it was commonly called elementary concept. Elementary concept was divided into 9 levels. Every increase in level would allow one to gain the strength of an ancient horned dragon. Since there was elementary concept, there was naturally intermediate concept as well. Intermediate concept was the common name of void interpretation concept. If a 9th level void initiation stage martial artist wanted to step into the void interpretation stage, then the martial artist must break through on the foundation of 9th level elementary concept and comprehend intermediate concept. If the martial artist didn't satisfy this condition, then the martial artist would be unable to step into the void interpretation stage. Intermediate concept was similar to elementary concept, and it was divided into 9 levels as well. First level intermediate concept was comparable to the strength of 20 ancient horned dragons. Every increase in level was able to provide an increase of 10 ancient horned dragons' strength. 9th level intermediate concept was comparable to the strength of 100 ancient horned dragons. If a 9th level void interpretation stage martial artist wanted to step into the void transformation stage, it was the same. The martial artist must break through on the foundation of 9th level intermediate concept and comprehend advanced concept. Advanced concept was the common name of void transformation concept. First level advanced concept was comparable to the strength of 200 ancient horned dragons. Every increase in level was able to provide an increase of 100 ancient horned dragons' strength. 9th level advanced concept was comparable to the strength of 1,000 ancient horned dragons. On the other hand, to a certain extent, advanced concept had completely surpassed elementary concept and intermediate concept. A martial artist that had comprehended first level advanced concept would develop a concept fragment in the depths of his mind, and it was similar to the inner core of a fierce beast or demon beast. A concept fragment contained the comprehension of a martial artist that had comprehended advanced concept towards a certain type of advanced concept. This sort of martial artist was usually in existence at the void transformation stage, and once he was killed, his opponent would mercilessly seize his concept fragment. A concept fragment was the concept crystal of a void transformation stage martial artist. If it was obtained by another martial artist that had comprehended a similar concept, then the martial artist would even be able to rely on it to speed up the process of comprehending that concept. Chapter 608. Based on the perception of my spiritual force, Xuanai's current ice concept ought to be intermediate concept without a doubt. Moreover, it's at least at the 7th level. Relying on the lifetime experience of Samsara Emperor Wu, Duanling Tian was faintly able to deduce the level of ice concept that Xuanai had grasped now. 7th level intermediate concept was equivalent to the strength of 80 ancient horned dragons. Xuanai's strength was regardless of cultivation. Merely the energy of concept was sufficient to cause Duanling Tian to be extremely shocked. Duanling Tian, who recovered from his shock, didn't continue cultivating, but instead pulled out the little gold mouse from his sleeve and held it in his hand. This little fellow is actually cultivating as well. Duanling Tian shook his head and smiled as he looked at the little gold mouse that lay on his hand without moving. Finding the little gold mouse once more was undoubtedly a matter worthy of being happy to Duanling Tian. What caused Duanling Tian to be pleasantly surprised was that the little gold mouse had already advanced into the little gold mouse. The little gold mouse had actually broken through to the void initiation stage as well, and it wasn't just that, she had even comprehended 2nd level lightning concept. After lightly putting down the little gold mouse, Duanling Tian stood up and walked to stand on the shoulder of the three-eyed flame tiger before looking ahead. Ahead was a boundless expanse of land, and behind this boundless expanse of land strands of inconspicuous blue could be faintly seen, and it was extremely far away from where he was now. That's the sea? Duanling Tian thought in his heart as he thought in his heart. A few days later, Duanling Tian looked at the expanse of blue that grew closer and closer, and he finally confirmed it. It really is the sea. The distant sea and the azure sky had practically merged into one. The so-called sea and sky merging into one ought to be talking about the scene before my eyes, right? Duanling Tian thought in his heart. Another day and night passed. At this moment, Duanling Tian, who stood on the shoulder of the three-eyed flame tiger, could feel waves of sea breeze blowing over, and there was even a trace of the smell of the sea mixed within. After coming to this world for so many years, it's still the first time I've seen the sea. Looking at the endless sea before him, Duanling Tian sighed inwardly. The entire cloud continent was located in the endless ocean. Duanling Tian had learned this from the memories of the reincarnation Emperor Wu. As for that boundless sea, not even Emperor Wu of Samsara dared to explore it when he was at his peak. The endless sea region was an extremely mysterious existence to the group of experts who stood at the peak of Cloud Continent. No one knew what was on the other side of the sea. That place could be a boundless sea or another continent. It could also be a dangerous place that even a martial emperor would find difficult to defend against. Not long after, Duan Lingtian saw the jade sword enter the sky above the sea and enter deep into the sea. The sword monarch's treasure wouldn't be in the depths of the sea, right? At this moment, someone couldn't help but exclaim. The jade sword has stopped. Suddenly, someone cried out in alarm, attracting everyone's attention. Duan Lingtian glanced over. In the distance, the jade sword that had been moving forward paused in midair. Meanwhile, the three-eyed flame tiger had stopped as well. For a time, Han Xuanai and the little gold mouse who were meditating and cultivating on the back of the three-eyed flame tiger had awoken. Squeak squeak, the little gold mouse blinked her hazy eyes, then her body shook before transforming into a golden light that flashed out to descend onto Duan Lingtian's shoulder, and she sized up the scene before her with interest. We've arrived? Han Xuanai arrived by Duan Lingtian's side as well, and she looked at the jade sword in midair with Duan Lingtian. The jade sword stopped there and ceaselessly revolved. Strands of green light suffused out within it. Hiss hiss. Meanwhile, two little pythons came out from beneath Han Xuanai's sleeves, and they flicked their tongues in high spirits. Suddenly there was movement from the jade sword. Swish! A green light flashed by, and the jade sword actually pierced straight into the calm sea. Along with the jade sword entering, the calm sea started to roil and transform into circle after circle of ripples that spread out, seeming to sparkle under the scorching sun. Big guy, let's go down. Remember to use your origin energy to protect us. Han Xuanai spoke indifferently. The three-eyed flame tiger nodded, then its figure flashed to dive down. At the same time, a layer of milky white light barrier arose on the surface of the three-eyed flame tiger's body, and it was precisely a protective barrier formed from origin energy. Along with the enormous body of the three-eyed flame tiger entering the sea, waves of tempestuous waves charged into the sky with a shocking impetus. With the protection of the three-eyed flame tiger's origin energy barrier, Duan Lingtian, Han Xuanai, and Dong Ming weren't assaulted by the seawater. The sea was completely isolated outside by the origin energy barrier, and it formed a completely different world from the place Duan Lingtian stood. Over there. Suddenly, a wave of voice sounded out through the seawater. It was Elder Hu who'd come with Dong Ming, and he'd noticed the traces of the jade sword in the depths of the sea. Instantly, the three-eyed flame tiger and the remaining group of people went deep into the sea. After a short moment, the group of people entered the deep sea. Within the deep sea, it was completely pitch black like the night, and they could vaguely see some living beings that emitted light circling around everywhere. The milky white origin energy barrier that arose from the three-eyed flame tiger was like a large light bulb that illuminated half the deep sea. Whereas the remaining group of people had their origin energy barriers open as well, and they chased after the jade sword all the way. This is the deep sea? Duan Lingtian sized up the deep sea, and he could see some ferocious beasts within the sea that overestimated their ability and pounced over. However, these ferocious beasts hadn't even approached when they were easily annihilated by the three-eyed flame tiger and the others. For a time, the deep sea was suffused with waves of the smell of blood. Moreover, the ferocious beasts that smelled the smell of blood were even more numerous, and they advanced in succession as if they couldn't be killed completely. There are no demon beasts here? Duan Lingtian couldn't help but be stunned as he gazed at the fresh blood that dyed the seaweed in the deep sea. Logically speaking, if there were demon beasts here, they ought to have smelled the smell of blood since long ago and followed the smell of blood over. Big brother Lingtian, there are naturally demon beasts here. But don't forget, demon beasts are existences that possess the intelligence of humans. They've sensed the big guy's aura from afar, so how could they dare come over and give their lives away? Han Xuanai shook her head and smiled. Duan Lingtian came to a sudden understanding, and only now did he recall that the big fellow beneath his feet was a formidable 9th-level void initiation stage demon beast. How could ordinary demon beasts dare be presumptuous before it? But this place still belongs to the outer sea. Even though there are many demon beasts, the strongest are at most some void initiation stage demon beast. If we continue heading towards the inner sea, we might even encounter void interpretation stage demon beasts. Han Xuanai continued. Xuanai, you seem to be extremely familiar with the sea? Duan Lingtian asked curiously. He noticed that when Xuanai introduced the sea, she was extremely familiar with it. When I was young, my father didn't have time to accompany me, so I basically asked Qing Nu to bring me to play in the sea. Han Xuanai's face revealed a wisp of sorrow as she sighed. As time passed, the boundless sea became a part of my childhood. When she spoke up to hear, Han Xuanai paused for a moment, and the sorrow on her face vanished without a trace. I heard Qing Nu say that there are even some void transformation stage demons in the depths of the inner sea. If we continue heading towards the core area of the inner sea, we might even encounter demon monarchs and demon emperors. Demon monarchs? Demon emperors? The corners of Duan Lingtian's mouth twitched. According to the information he obtained from the memories of Samsara Emperor Wu. All those years ago, when Samsara Emperor Wu went deep into the boundless sea, he'd once encountered some demon monarchs and 3 demon emperors. One of the demon emperors had a strength that was even close to him. It was precisely because of this that Samsara Emperor Wu took into account the unknown nature of the boundless sea, so he chose to return to Cloud Continent. Perhaps, if Samsara Emperor Wu continued to go deep into the boundless sea all those years ago, he might even encounter a demon emperor that was stronger than him. This was also the thing that Samsara Emperor Wu was most worried about. In Duan Lingtian's opinion, Samsara Emperor Wu's choice at that time was undoubtedly wise. When Dong Ming, who stood nearby, heard Han Xuanai, he was terrified to the point his face went pale. For the first time he felt that. So it turned out that the sea was so terrifying as well. He originally thought that only existences at the void transformation stage and above existed in the foreign lands. Who knew that there were even existences in the sea? Swish. Yu Jian led the way in front while Duan Lingtian and the others followed behind. The deep sea was originally extremely quiet, and Duan Lingtian's group had broken the silence as they moved through it. All along the way, the glowing seaweed and various deep-sea creatures entered their eyes, and it caused Duan Lingtian and the others to be slightly dazzled. We're still going down. Duan Lingtian's brows raised. He noticed that the origin energy light barriers on the surface of the bodies of some of the 11 people with comparatively weaker cultivations had already started to tremble. In the deep sea, the deeper one went, the greater the pressure. All of you come in. After another period of time, Duan Lingtian noticed that the origin energy light barriers on the surface of their bodies were already on the verge of collapse, and he spoke to them. The few of them felt as if a heavy burden had been lifted off their shoulders when they heard this, and they passed through the origin energy light barriers on the surface of the 3-eyed flame tiger's body before descending onto its back. Thank you. The few of them looked at Duan Lingtian and repeatedly thanked him. Duan Lingtian nodded lightly and paid no further attention to them. The few of them weren't angry. To them, this young man being able to lend them a helping hand at this moment had already caused them to be extremely grateful. Moreover, when they left this place later on, they would probably have to rely on this 3-eyed flame tiger and ask for help from him. When they thought up to here, they completely lost their temper. We've arrived at the bottom of the sea. Suddenly, the old man in green who was walking at the very front stopped in his tracks. Meanwhile, everyone saw it once more. The jade sword that led them forward had stopped within the sea now, and it was ceaselessly revolving as if it was searching for the location of the sword monarch's treasure. When they arrived at the bottom of the sea, it was a completely different scene. It was peerlessly beautiful and dazzling. Swish. Suddenly, the jade sword moved and flashed directly to the side of the sea. Everywhere the jade sword passed, Duan Lingtian and the others chased after it, causing the half of the sea that was pitch black like ink to become bright as day for a time. In next to no time, a tall mountain at the bottom of the sea appeared before the eyes of Duan Lingtian and the others. This tall mountain was an entire few hundred meters tall. And on the side of the mountain facing them, there stood a magnificent door. The door was ancient and aged. Even though it was deep within the sea, it didn't suffer any corrosion, and it was obviously constructed from unusual materials. When the jade sword arrived before the door, it lost its luster and fell down. We've arrived. The eyes of many lit up. This is the door to the sword monarch's treasure? As he looked at the door before him, Duan Lingtian's heart trembled slightly. Chapter 609. The door of the sword monarch's treasure that was at the bottom of the sea before him caused Duan Lingtian to be shocked. According to the memories of Emperor Wu of Samsara. Even if it was Emperor Wu of Samsara all those years ago, even though he'd played many similar games, it wasn't exaggerated and exhausting to such an extent. The martial monarch that left behind this sword monarch's treasure seems to have gone a bit too far. Even though he thought like this in his heart, Duan Lingtian didn't feel there was anything wrong with it. Perhaps the martial monarch that left behind the sword monarch's treasure was more playful. How do we enter? In next to no time someone noticed this problem. For a time, the gazes of everyone including Duan Lingtian started to revolve around the door of the Sword Monarch's treasure and size it up. They wanted to find the method to open it. After looking for a long time, everyone was still bewildered. According to rumor, the 9 jade swords are the key to open the Sword Monarch's treasure. But there isn't even a single keyhole on this door. Someone frowned. Looks like we can only force our way in. A blue-clothed middle-aged man took a step forward, and with a raise of his hand, his origin energy skyrocketed while his concept followed like a shadow as it pressed down towards the door of the Sword Monarch's treasure. Bang! An enormous bang sounded out as the seawater roiled and became extremely muddy. At the same time, it shocked many underwater creatures to the point they fled in all directions as if they were fleeing for their lives. These underwater creatures couldn't even be considered as wild beasts, and they didn't possess the slightest offensive strength. The blue-clothed middle-aged man's attack caused quite a commotion, yet the door of the Sword Monarch's treasure didn't move in the slightest. What a firm door. The blue-clothed middle-aged man had a shocked expression as he looked at the door of the Sword Monarch's treasure. He was in existence at the 7th level of the Void Initiation stage at any rate, but even if he exerted his full strength and utilized his concept, the door of the Sword Monarch's treasure actually didn't move in the slightest. Han Xuanai, who stood by Duan Lingtian's side, grunted lightly and mocked. Don't forget that this Sword Monarch's treasure is a treasure vault left behind by a martial monarch. A martial monarch is an existence that surpasses the Void Transformation stage. The things he left behind, not to mention you, a Void Initiation stage martial artist, even a Void Transformation stage martial artist may not be able to destroy them. Hearing Han Xuanai's words, the blue-clothed middle-aged man smiled awkwardly. I was reckless. Making a move in front of Miss is like showing off in front of an expert. Young Miss, I wonder if you have a way to open the door to the Sword Monarch's treasure? If we can't open this door, then our trip today will be in vain. A green-clothed old man looked at Han Xuanai respectfully and asked. Instantly, besides Duan Lingtian, who was still sizing up the door of the Sword Monarch's treasure from top to bottom, Duan Lingtian was still in a daze. Everyone looked at Han Xuanai. Han Xuanai was, without a doubt, the most powerful existence in this group. Being stared at by so many people, Han Xuanai frowned unhappily. Didn't you hear what I just said? This is the treasure vault left behind by a martial monarch. Not to mention me, even a Void Transformation martial artist would be powerless, let alone a martial artist like me who has yet to step into the Void Transformation stage. Everyone was slightly embarrassed when they heard this. But when they heard the young girl, they finally confirmed one thing. That was, the young girl wasn't a demon. If she was a demon, then it was impossible for her to not possess a cultivation at the Void Transformation stage. Looks like this young girl ought to be a junior disciple from a formidable power in the foreign lands. She's already broken through to the Void Interpretation stage at such a young age. Exactly how formidable is the power she belongs to? The same thought emerged in the hearts of many people, and they were extremely shocked. This was even more shocking than the young girl being a demon. No matter how strong a demon was, it was still a lone figure, and it was usually in existence at the Void Transformation stage. Whereas a power that was capable of producing a 15 or 16-year-old Void Interpretation stage expert was obvious. Even if that power possessed a martial monarch stage expert, they wouldn't be surprised. A 15 or 16-year-old Void Interpretation stage expert, not to mention the Dark Han dynasty, even in the history of the various dynasties, such a figure had never appeared. It was even to the extent that a Void Interpretation stage expert below the age of 30 hadn't appeared in the various dynasties. Big Brother Lingtian, have you noticed anything? Xuanai looked at the nearby Duan Lingtian and asked. The reason she asked this was mainly because she saw Duan Lingtian's eyes suddenly light up. From the beginning until the end, Duan Lingtian's attention had always been on the door of the Sword Monarch's treasure. Xuanai. Duan Lingtian's eyes flashed as he stared at the door of the Sword Monarch's treasure before him and said slowly, according to legend, the key to open the Sword Monarch's treasure is the 9 jade swords. I feel that if I want to open it, I have to start from the 9 jade swords. Han Xuanai hadn't spoken when the green-clothed old man that stood at the side of the entrance to the Sword Monarch's treasure, elder who that had come with Dong Ming, had already ridiculed. All of us know what you're talking about. Not to mention there isn't even a single keyhole that can accommodate a jade sword on the door. Even if there really are 9 keyholes, how are you going to open it now that the 9 jade swords have already fused into one? Elder whose words obtained the agreement of many people including Dong Ming. Old bastard. Why are you interrupting when my big brother Ling Tian is speaking? If you're tired of living, then this young miss doesn't mind sending you on your way. Han Xuanai was displeased when she saw Elder Hu ridiculing Duan Lingtian, and she exploded with rage. Since a young age, because of her special identity besides a little sister of similar age, she didn't have any other friends amongst her peers. Practically all the other people of the same age looked up to her, and every single one of them was reverent and respectful to her. Every time she saw someone else being doted on by an older brother or sister, she would feel a wave of envy in her heart. Until she met Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian didn't treat her like those people by her side in the past, and he completely treated her as a little sister, causing her to experience the warmth of an older brother for the first time. Since that time she'd taken Duan Lingtian to be her older brother, and she enjoyed the care and concern of her older brother. Now, someone actually dared ridicule her older brother? Whoosh! Along with Han Xuanai speaking, strands of coldness arose around her for no reason or rhyme. The coldness was extremely cold and it swept out. For a moment the seawater was turbulent, and it was greatly affected. After a while, some of the seawater at the bottom of the sea even condensed into pieces of ice and fell to the ground. The amount of ice shards was still increasing. If this continued, it wouldn't be long before the seawater around the bottom of the sea where everyone was at would condense into ice. Elder Hu's expression changed drastically. Only then did he remember how terrifying this young girl in yellow was. She wasn't someone he could deal with. Now he wished he could slap himself in the face. Why did he have to say so much? He was simply asking for trouble. Young miss, I don't think this senior has any ill intentions. Someone looked at Han Xuanai and advised softly. Yes, this senior is also thinking for the common interests of everyone, so he's a little impulsive. Please calm down, young Mississippi. Many people followed suit. Now, in their eyes, this young girl in yellow in front of them was a living Yama who controlled their lives. If the young girl continued like this, they would undoubtedly become the burial objects of the old man in green. The extremely icy coldness was still ceaselessly rising. It probably wouldn't be long before the surrounding seawater would transform into ice, whereas they would be frozen within it and have a slim chance of survival. Unless they left now and abandoned the Sword Monarch's treasure and everything within it. But how could they be willing to leave just like this? They'd been looking forward to this day for a long time. Now, everyone present hated Elder Hu to the extreme. If it wasn't for him, how could the young girl be enraged? Brother Lingtian. Dong Ming looked at Duan Lingtian with a gaze filled with a pleading expression. As far as he was concerned. Now, only Duan Lingtian was capable of calming the young girl's rage. Forget it, Xuanai. Duan Lingtian glanced coldly at the old man, then looked at Han Xuanai and said with a light smile, There's no need to get angry with some people, just take his words as nonsense. Moreover, if a dog bites us we can't bite it back, right? What difference would that make us from a dog? Duan Lingtian's words caused the gazes of everyone to become strange. Elder Hu's face went grim. This Duan Lingtian said he was a dog? The corners of Han Xuanai's mouth trembled slightly as a trace of a smile appeared on her face. At the same time, the coldness on her body was restrained, but her eyes that were filled with rage still stared at Elder Hu. Apologize to Big Brother Lingtian, otherwise die. When everyone present heard Han Xuanai's furious and overbearing words, they felt a chill run down their spines. They didn't doubt the young girl's words in the slightest. They'd witnessed the young girl's strength with their own two eyes. Elder Hu's face went grim. She wanted him to apologize to someone that had just insulted him? As an 8th level Void Initiation stage martial artist, he had his own dignity. But now, when he felt the killing intent contained within the young girl's eyes, his heart couldn't help but tremble. Especially now, when numerous rapid sound transmissions pierced into his ears. Without exception, all these voice transmissions were from everyone present, and all of them were advising him to apologize. This time he'd obviously incurred the wrath of everyone. In the end, Elder Hu gritted his teeth and took a deep breath before looking at Duan Lingtian. I'm sorry. Duan Lingtian nodded indifferently. Xuanai. When the others heaved a sigh of relief, Duan Lingtian looked at Han Xuanai. Pick up that jade sword and pass it to me. Presently, Duan Lingtian felt that it was difficult for the light barrier formed from his origin energy to resist the water pressure at the bottom of the sea. So he was unable to pick up the jade sword on the ground outside the Sword Monarch's treasure himself. Even though she didn't know what Duan Lingtian wanted to do, Han Xuanai still flew out and propped up an origin energy light barrier on her body before grabbing the jade sword with a raise of her hand. In the blink of an eye, she'd returned to Duan Lingtian's side and passed the jade sword to Duan Lingtian. Big brother Lingtian, what do you want this jade sword for? It's nothing, I just want to test if my guess is correct. Duan Lingtian smiled lightly. For a time, the gazes of everyone descended onto Duan Lingtian, and they were curious about what Duan Lingtian wanted to do. Squeak squeak. Chapter 610. Hiss hiss, the two little pythons were the same. They stuck their heads out from under Xuanai's sleeves and stared at Duan Lingtian with interest. Now, Duan Lingtian, who'd attracted the gazes of everyone, held the jade sword in his hand. Subsequently, his origin energy fused into it. I hope my guess isn't wrong, Duan Lingtian thought in his heart. According to Duan Lingtian's guess, the reason the jade sword in his hand was able to transform into 9 swords and fuse into one was very likely because it was inscribed with some sort of miraculous inscription formation. It was precisely because of this that the jade sword was able to combine 9 swords into one. Reincarnation Emperor Wu had encountered this sort of inscription formation all those years ago. Although he couldn't be considered to have dabbled in it, he knew a certain principle. Along with Duan Lingtian's origin energy fusing into the jade sword, a milky white flame rose explosively and burned brilliantly. What does he want to do? This was the thought of most people present. Big brother Lingtian. Han Xuanai looked at Duan Lingtian, and her clear eyes that were like water had a trace of anticipation mixed within. As for the azure-clothed old man, Elder Hu, who stood at the side in the distance, he grunted in his heart, and his eyes flickered with mischief. Let's see how you embarrass yourself. Elder Hu slightly took pleasure in Duan Lingtian's misfortune. There's a chance. The eyes of Duan Lingtian, who originally had a serious expression, flashed abruptly, and a smile bloomed on his face. Duan Lingtian's origin energy fused into the jade sword, and sure enough, he noticed traces of inscriptions. Moreover, it wasn't just a single trace, there were an entire 9 traces, and they formed a miraculous inscription formation. It's exactly the same as the inscription formation Emperor Wu had the fortune to see that day. Duan Lingtian heaved a sigh of relief. Looks like his guess was right. Since it can combine 9 swords into one, it can naturally divide one sword into 9. With a thought, Duan Lingtian's origin energy fused into the inscription formation and started to interfere with the circulation of the 9 inscriptions. After a short moment, the jade sword in Duan Lingtian's hand suddenly emitted a bright green brilliance. It was like a scorching sun, causing everyone present to subconsciously close their eyes. Even Han Xuanai was no exception. When they regained their senses, they were completely dumbfounded. Heavens! What did they see? In the distance, the purple-clothed youth stood there, faintly exuding a trace of mystery. Of course, this was the thought that suddenly rose in their hearts. The most important thing was the 9 jade swords in the hands of the purple-clothed youth. The jade sword has been divided into 9 again? Everyone looked at each other in disbelief. Some people even fiercely rubbed their eyes, thinking that they were seeing things. Only when they rubbed their eyes and saw that Duan Lingtian still had 9 jade swords in his hand did they confirm it. The jade swords were truly divided into 9 swords. Brother Lingtian, how did you do it? Han Xuanai's eyes lit up. She looked at Duan Lingtian in surprise. Even though she possessed an extraordinary background, it was the first time she'd seen such a miraculous thing. The 9 jade swords that had fused into one had actually split apart once more now. I don't know as well. I just fused my origin energy into it and then it split into 9. The complexity of an inscription formation was something that an outsider wouldn't know, and only an inscription master would understand. So Duan Lingtian only shrugged and casually replied, and he didn't speak the truth. But Han Xuanai wasn't so easily deceived. She glanced deeply at Duan Lingtian and said via voice transmission, Brother Lingtian, you must tell me how you did it after we come out from the Sword Monarch's treasure. When I picked up the jade sword earlier, I fused my origin energy into it to investigate, yet it didn't have any reaction. Whereas in your hands, it directly split into 9. You've surely done something else. Han Xuanai finished speaking in a single breath. Duan Lingtian laughed bitterly. This little girl is really quick-witted, she's even able to see through this. Alright, I'll tell you in detail after we come out from the Sword Monarch's treasure. Wait, how do you know I'm able to open the Sword Monarch's treasure? As Duan Lingtian finished speaking, he shuddered and asked Han Xuanai. After all, the door of the Sword Monarch's treasure was completely flat, and there wasn't a single keyhole. Brother Lingtian, I believe you surely have a way. Han Xuanai said. Duan Lingtian was slightly speechless. This little girl trusts me so much? But needless to say, the feeling of being worshipped like this was extremely satisfying. Especially being worshipped by a monstrous genius like Han Xuanai, it caused Duan Lingtian to feel slightly complacent. Brother Lingtian, now that the Jade Sword has split into 9, what do you want to do? Dong Ming looked at Duan Lingtian and asked curiously. Presently, Dong Ming's face faintly contained slight admiration mixed within. Even though Duan Lingtian had spoken of it simply earlier. But he understood in his heart that all of this was impossible to be as simple as it seemed on the surface. Otherwise, why would Duan Lingtian be the only one who thought of doing this? Since everyone present was in existence at the void initiation stage or above, then it meant that there weren't any idiots. There's no need for me after this. Duan Lingtian shook his head. Under the astounded gazes of everyone, Duan Lingtian released his hand that held the 9 jade swords. Subsequently, the 9 jade swords flew out and flashed directly towards the door of the Sword Monarch's treasure, and they seemed to have transformed into 9 jade green bolts of lightning. At practically the instant the 9 jade swords flew out. Under the gazes of everyone present, 9 holes, that flickered with white lights appeared out of thin air on the door of the Sword Monarch's treasure. Or more precisely speaking, it was 9 keyholes. Swish, 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 swish. The 9 jade swords flashed out and flashed through the seawater as they emitted a wave of sword howls. In next to no time, the 9 jade swords aimed at the 9 keyholes on the door of the Sword Monarch's treasure and fiercely collided with them. Clang, 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 clang. The 9 jade swords just happened to aim at the 9 keyholes and perfectly inserted themselves into them. Right at this moment, 9 strong lights flashed, causing everyone including Duan Lingtian to be unable to refrain from closing their eyes. When they opened their eyes once more, they noticed that the 9 jade swords had actually perfectly fused together with the door of the Sword Monarch's treasure. Rumble. Suddenly the door of the Sword Monarch's treasure trembled. A wave of rumbling clearly entered into the ears of Duan Lingtian and the others, and it reverberated in their ears like thunder. The speed of sound traveling through the water wasn't the slightest bit slower than the speed of sound traveling through the air. At the same time, the door of the Sword Monarch's treasure moved upwards and gradually vanished before the eyes of Duan Lingtian and the others. What's that? Origin Energy Light Barrier? It actually completely isolated the seawater outside. Suddenly, someone exclaimed in shock. Meanwhile, the others clearly noticed that after the door of the Sword Monarch's treasure was opened, a layer of translucent light barrier appeared before their eyes. Behind the light barrier was an expanse of gray and hazy, and it seemed as if there were dark and heavy clouds moving rhythmically, causing them to be unable to see the situation within clearly. It's an inscription formation again. Duan Lingtian's pupils constricted as his heart trembled slightly. Could it be that the martial monarch that left behind the Sword Monarch's treasure was an inscription master as well? First, it was the miraculous inscription formation that combined 9 swords into 1 and 9 swords into 1. Now it's an inscription formation that isolates the seawater. Duan Lingtian sighed with emotion in his heart. 2 types of inscription formations. The former was something that even Emperor Wu of Samsara hadn't touched upon all those years ago. Because of this, Emperor Wu of Samsara even felt regretful. On the other hand, the latter was comparatively more ordinary. So long as Duan Lingtian's strength was sufficient, and so long as he possessed sufficient materials, he would be able to set it up as well. Amazing. It's all thanks to Brother Lingtian. Yeah, otherwise we would probably be refused entry today. Instantly, everyone present looked at Duan Lingtian and sighed with admiration, and they weren't stingy with their praise in the slightest. Even though Duan Lingtian spoke of splitting a sword into 9 in a casual manner. But everyone present was experienced, so how could they be unable to discern that Duan Lingtian spoke half-heartedly? As far as they were concerned. If Duan Lingtian didn't make a move, then even if they arrived before the door of the Sword Monarch's treasure, they would probably be unable to enter. Right at this moment, Elder Hu, who stood in the distance, grunted coldly, and his figure flashed out to be the first to charge towards the light barrier formed by the inscription formation that isolated the seawater. Elder Hu's figure easily fused into the light barrier. In the blink of an eye, he vanished before the eyes of Duan Lingtian and the others. The smile on Han Xuanai's face was restrained when she saw this scene, and her eyes flickered with cold lights. As the greatest contributor, Big Brother Lingtian hasn't entered yet. This old bastard actually dares to enter the Sword Monarch's treasure before us. I hope I don't see him again, otherwise I'll surely kill him. As Han Xuanai finished speaking, her tone was filled with ruthlessness. Yet this time no one sympathized with Elder Hu. All of them felt that Elder Hu had gone too far. Amongst them included Dong Ming. Dong Ming glanced at Duan Lingtian with slight embarrassment. Brother Lingtian, I'm sorry. Elder whose temper is like this, I hope you can forgive him. How about this, since Elder who is the first to enter the Sword Monarch's treasure, for the sake of fairness, I'll be the last to enter amongst all of us. How about it? I advise you to stay away from him. If he encounters any treasure within the Sword Monarch's treasure, then a person like him might be the first to kill you and take the treasure for himself. Duan Lingtian had an indifferent expression. As far as he was concerned, that old fellow would die sooner or later. He'd endured it over and over again, and it was none other than because he had the intention of allowing that old fellow to lead the way. Even though that old fellow was extremely detestable. But needless to say, his strength wasn't bad and he was extremely useful within the Sword Monarch's treasure. Dong Ming sighed and didn't say anything further. Brother Lingtian, young Miss Xuanai, please go ahead. Meanwhile, the others moved aside successively, and then they looked at Duan Lingtian and Han Xuanai as they spoke. Xuanai, let's go in. Duan Lingtian nodded to Xuanai, and then the two of them brought along the little gold mouse and two little pythons to fly towards the translucent light barrier at the entrance of the Sword Monarch's treasure. During this entire process, the origin energy on Han Xuanai's body skyrocketed to envelop Duan Lingtian as well, and she protected Duan Lingtian as they passed through the light barrier and entered the Sword Monarch's treasure. Before Han Xuanai entered the Sword Monarch's treasure, she didn't forget to instruct the three-eyed flame tiger. Big guy, obediently wait here for us to come out. If we don't see you when we come out, then I'll surely freeze you into a popsicle. Chapter 6:11. When they heard Han Xuanai's words and noticed the movements of the three-eyed flame tiger, the corners of the mouths of everyone that hadn't entered the Sword Monarch's treasure twitched. Only now did they realize that the reason the three-eyed flame tiger was so afraid of the young woman was because it had once been frozen into a popsicle by the young woman. As expected of a void interpretation stage expert, she's easily able to use ice concept to freeze a 9th level void initiation stage demon beast into a popsicle. Many people sighed in their hearts. Subsequently, everyone passed through the translucent light barrier at the entrance of the Sword Monarch's treasure and entered the Sword Monarch's treasure. Dong Ming did as he said and chose to be the last to enter. Behind the translucent light barrier, Duan Lingtian and Han Xuanai felt their bodies ceaselessly descending. After descending for over 10 breaths of time, the gray and misty clouds and mist before their eyes vanished. A boundlessly vast cavern appeared before their eyes. Bang, 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 bang. Right at this moment, a wave of enormous bangs sounded out from ahead, and it clearly entered into the ears of Duan Lingtian and Han Xuanai. When the two of them flashed forward, they quickly saw the figure of the azure-clothed old man, Elder Hu. Presently, Elder Hu was standing together with over 10 translucent human-shaped silhouettes. These human-shaped silhouettes all possessed extraordinary strength. Of course, none of them were as strong as Elder Hu. But every time these human-shaped silhouettes were crushed by Elder Hu, they would condense once more, and they were like cockroaches that couldn't be killed. Origin Shadow Puppets. Duan Lingtian's pupils constricted as he looked at the human-shaped silhouettes that weren't afraid of death as they fought Elder Hu. Looks like the martial monarch that left behind the Sword Monarch's treasure is really an inscription master. Origin Shadow Puppets are only condensed by a martial monarch stage inscription master with an inscription formation. Duan Lingtian gasped. Inscription formations were extremely profound. To a certain extent, martial monarch stage inscription masters were able to set up some inscription formations that were difficult for ordinary people to imagine. Amongst them was the Origin Shadow Inscription Formation. The nascent image inscription formation was an inscription formation that used origin stones as the foundation of the formation and supported the construction of various inscriptions. This kind of inscription pattern formation did not have any specific offensive power. However, once someone passed by the place where the inscription formation was set up, the inscription formation would automatically activate and mobilize the energy within the origin stones to condense origin shadow puppets. There were strong and weak origin shadow puppets, and the specifics still depended on the level of the inscription formation. An origin shadow inscription formation set up by a martial monarch stage inscription master was completely capable of condensing an origin shadow puppet with a cultivation at the void prying stage or above. Among the origin shadow puppets, the stronger ones were at the void ascension stage and void transformation stage. As for the void transformation stage origin shadow puppet, it wasn't something a martial monarch stage inscription master could condense with an inscription formation. If it was the reincarnation Emperor Wu, he would be completely capable of condensing a void transformation stage origin shadow puppet with the origin shadow inscription formation. However, the origin shadow puppet would at most be at the 9th level of the void transformation stage. Moreover, the greatest weakness of the origin shadow puppet is that it doesn't have force or concept to rely on. So even if it's an origin shadow puppet with a cultivation at the void transformation stage, it wouldn't be able to develop a concept fragment. The records related to the origin shadow puppets in the memories of the reincarnation Emperor Wu flashed within Duan Lingtian's mind. These 10+ origin shadow puppets only have a cultivation at the 4th level of the void initiation stage, and they who don't have concept to rely on are at most able to exert the strength of 6 ancient horned dragons. This old fellow is really looking for trouble, and he's actually wasting time with the origin shadow puppets. So long as the origin stones within the origin shadow inscription formation at the area he's at aren't completely exhausted, then the origin shadow puppets will never vanish. Duan Lingtian was slightly speechless towards Elder Hu ceaselessly destroying the origin shadow puppets. This old fellow probably doesn't even know what an origin shadow puppet is. It would be great if I'm able to obtain some origin stones from this sword monarch's treasure. Duan Lingtian thought in his heart, and he felt slight anticipation. Origin stones were commonly used by foreign lands martial artists to assist in their cultivation. Gold and silver were completely worthless in the foreign lands. The currency that circulated in the foreign lands wasn't gold and silver, but origin stones instead. When martial artists absorbed origin stones to cultivate, it was much more efficient than purely absorbing the spirit energy of the heavens and the earth to cultivate. Some martial artists with high natural talent relied on origin stones to cultivate, and they even advanced by leaps and bounds. But unfortunately, the origin stones used to circulate the inscription formation aren't suitable for cultivation due to the structure of the inscription formation being disturbed. Otherwise, I could consider digging out the origin stones within the inscription formation here. Duan Lingtian sighed in his heart and was slightly disappointed. Big brother Lingtian, we don't have to pay attention to these silhouettes and directly walk in. These silhouettes are only origin shadow puppets, and they're unable to pose any threat to us. Han Xuanai's voice transmission entered into Duan Lingtian's ears in a timely manner. If an origin shadow puppet catches up to us, then we'll directly make a move and destroy it. So long as we leave the area of effect of the origin shadow inscription formation that condenses the origin shadow puppets, then the origin shadow puppets won't attack us again. Obviously, Han Xuanai knew about origin shadow puppets and even knew about the origin shadow inscription formation. Of course, she didn't know that Duan Lingtian knew even more about this type of inscription formation than she did. But Duan Lingtian didn't expose her and only replied, "All right." Swoosh, swoosh. Their figures flashed out as if they'd transformed into 2 bolts of lightning that flashed out directly. After a short moment, they'd caught up to Elder Hu. Elder Hu's face sank when he saw Duan Lingtian and Han Xuanai who'd caught up to them, and slight fear appeared in his eyes. Big brother Lingtian, I don't want to see this old bastard again. Han Xuanai spoke to Duan Lingtian as she used a fierce gaze to examine Elder Hu. Xuanai, there's no need to pay attention to him now. It wouldn't be too late to kill him after we've finished searching the Sword Monarch's treasure. At that time, no matter what he gains in the Sword Monarch's treasure, it'll all belong to us. Duan Lingtian shook his head and rejected Han Xuanai's plan. Han Xuanai pondered for a moment before agreeing in the end. Then we'll let him live for a few more days. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. When Duan Lingtian and Han Xuanai passed by the area Elder Hu was at, 20+ origin shadow puppets condensed in the sky and flashed directly towards them. The 2 of them who were prepared since long ago didn't panic and easily destroyed these origin shadow puppets. When the origin shadow puppets condensed once more, they flashed all the way in. After annihilating 2 waves of origin shadow puppets, there were finally no more origin shadow puppets that chased after them. Alright, we've already left the origin shadow inscription formation. Meanwhile, Han Xuanai spoke to Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian nodded. Let's continue in and take a look. All along the way, even though those origin shadow puppets that attacked Duan Lingtian were existences at the 4th level of the void initiation stage, but because they didn't have concept to rely on. In terms of strength, they were far inferior to Duan Lingtian. Even though Duan Lingtian was only a 3rd level void initiation stage martial artist, he'd comprehended concept energy and coupled with his spirit weapon to rely on, he was easily capable of destroying origin shadow puppets at this level. Subsequently, Duan Lingtian and Han Xuanai continued to go deeper. In the end, they experienced a few more similar areas enveloped by the Origin Shadow Inscription formation. The further they went, the stronger the Origin Shadow puppets became. Gradually it was slightly strenuous for Duan Tian to deal with them. But with Han Xuan'ai present, they easily crushed all the Origin Shadow puppets. In the end, the two of them arrived at the end of the vast cavern. That's... Duan Tian's gaze was sharp, and he noticed a stone platform in the distance with a single glance, and a box was placed on the stone platform. The box was covered in dust. There's a flight of stairs behind it. Han Xuan'ai's voice sounded out in a timely manner, and it clearly entered into Duan Tian's ears. Only now did Duan Tian notice that behind the stone platform the box was on was a flight of stairs that led down. That place seemed to lead to another space. Let's see what's in the box first. Han Xuan'ai's speed was swift, and she directly arrived before the box before raising her hand to wipe away the dust on it before opening the box. Inside the box, there was an emerald jade piece and a sword-shaped fragment lying there quietly. It's a sound transmission jade slip. Duan Tian recognized the jade slip, and he stretched out his hand to pick it up before fusing his origin energy into it. On the other hand, the nearby Han Xuan'ai's gaze descended onto the sword-shaped fragment, and her eyes lit up abruptly. Sword concept fragment? That martial monarch is really generous. Concept fragments were fragments that contained advanced concept that only experts at the void transformation stage or above were capable of developing. Once these concept fragments that contained advanced concept were obtained by someone that had comprehended the same concept, the person would be able to rely on it to swiftly advance that concept. Whereas this concept fragment now belonged to the sword concept soul fragment. If it was obtained by a martial artist that had comprehended sword concept, then that martial artist would rely on it to comprehend sword concept and advance by leaps and bounds. Even if it was a martial artist with low comprehension ability, the improvement in sword concept would far exceed those martial artists with extraordinary comprehension ability. If it was obtained by a martial artist with high comprehension ability, then the advancement in sword concept would be even more terrifying. Unfortunately, Big Brother Ling Tian, Little Black, Little White, and Little Gold are unable to use it. Han Xuan'ai shook her head. Meanwhile, after Duan Tian's origin energy fused into the voice transmission jade slip, a steady voice sounded out. No matter who you are, since you've obtained the voice transmission jade slip, then you've passed the test of the first level of the cenotaph I left behind. The reward of the first level of the test is a sword concept soul fragment. So long as a martial artist that has comprehended sword concept relies on this soul fragment, then the martial artist will be able to swiftly advance their sword concept to third level advanced sword concept. The voice vanished at this point. Sword concept soul fragment? Duan Tian returned to his senses and looked at the sword-shaped fragment in Han Xuan'ai's hand. This sword-shaped fragment looked no different than an ordinary glass fragment. But when Duan Tian's spiritual force touched it, he was able to sense an extremely fierce aura sweep out and instantly disperse his spiritual force. Not only that. Instantly, Duan Tian felt his vital energy and blood roil, and a sweetness rose from his throat that was difficult to restrain. In the end, Duan Tian couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. Big Brother Ling Tian, what's wrong? Chapter 6:12. It's nothing. Duan Tian stretched out his hand to wipe off the bloodstains on the corners of his mouth and shook his head. But when he looked once more at the sword concept fragment in Han Xuan'ai's hand, there seemed to be slight fear in the depths of his eyes. A mere concept fragment had directly crushed his spiritual force. That fierce aura is obviously sword concept. Moreover, it's even advanced sword concept. Duan Tian gasped. Fortunately, it was only instinctively protecting itself earlier. Otherwise, I'm afraid not only would it have crushed my spiritual force, it would have even injured my soul. Advanced concept was also known as void transformation concept. It was a concept grasped by a void transformation stage expert, and its might was shocking. Not to mention anything else, just take this sword concept fragment as an example. According to the voice transmission jade slip from before, the martial monarch that was suspected to have left behind a message in the sword monarch's treasure. This concept fragment was a third-level advanced sword concept fragment. Third-level advanced concept was comparable to the strength of 400 ancient horned dragons. The strength of 400 ancient horned dragons? What sort of concept was that? Even if it was a 9th-level void interpretation stage martial artist, regardless of the concept he comprehended, his origin energy when fully exerted would only be comparable to the strength of 120 ancient horned dragons. Even if the 9th level intermediate concept that was comparable to the strength of 100 ancient horned dragons was included, it would only be the strength of 220 ancient horned dragons. It was even to the extent that even a 9th level void interpretation stage martial artist that had comprehended 1st level advanced concept would only possess the strength of 320 ancient horned dragons when exerting his full strength without using a spirit weapon. The strength of 400 ancient horned dragons was undoubtedly an astronomical figure to Duan Tian, who didn't even possess the strength of 10 ancient horned dragons when fully exerted. Moreover, this strength was contained within this tiny concept fragment. Big brother Ling Tian here. Han Xuan'ai casually tossed the concept fragment in her hand to Duan Tian as if she was throwing trash. This concept fragment is useless to us. A concept fragment was something that only a martial artist that had comprehended a concept would be able to rely on it to comprehend a higher level concept. Just like Duan Tian. Unless he had comprehended sword concept, even if it was only 1st level elementary sword concept. Otherwise, this concept fragment would be useless in his hands. However, Duan Tian still grabbed the concept fragment like it was a treasure. What a joke. Even to void interpretation stage martial artists and some void transformation stage powerhouses, this concept fragment was an existence similar to a treasure. If he took it out, even 9th level void interpretation stage experts and void transformation stage experts that had comprehended sword concept yet hadn't comprehended 3rd level advanced sword concept or above would fight to the death for it. Big brother Ling Tian, we should go down. It wasn't until Han Xuan'ai's voice came from the stairs in front that Duan Tian came back to his senses. Put it away first. After putting away the sword concept fragment in his hand, Duan Tian responded to Xuan'ai and walked down the stairs with her. At this moment, Duan Tian was trying his best to restrain his excitement. The stairs were extremely long, and ahead of them was an expanse of gray and hazy mist, causing them to be unable to see clearly what was behind them. Duan Tian and Han Xuan'ai moved through the mist and walked down the stairs all the way until they stepped onto flat ground, and the mist before them gradually vanished before their eyes. Right at this moment. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. A wave of howls of the wind abruptly sounded out from afar. Duan Tian didn't even have the time to raise his head when he felt a wave of strong wind assault him, and it caused the clothes on his body to swell up. When Duan Tian raised his head, he saw numerous ceaselessly revolving tornadoes flashing towards him and Han Xuan'ai. The tornadoes formed a row and filled the vast cavern in the 2nd level of the Sword Monarch's treasure, causing one to have no way out. Now Duan Tian and Han Xuan'ai had 2 choices. The first was to return to the 1st level. The second was to force their way through. So long as they charged through this row of tornadoes that connected the top and bottom of the cavern and formed a defensive barrier, they would be able to continue deeper into the 2nd level. The reward of the 2nd level was surely at the end of the cavern. When he saw this row of tornadoes coming closer and closer, it blew Duan Tian's entire body to the point it seemed as if it was about to float up. It's at least a few hundred meters away from me. If it's any closer, then wouldn't I be blown flying by it? Duan Tian laughed bitterly. Big brother Ling Tian, let's charge over. Han Xuan'ai called out to Duan Tian, and then her entire body seemed to have transformed into a bolt of lightning that flashed out to charge towards the row of tornadoes that swept over. Swoosh. In the blink of an eye, Han Xuan'ai passed through the row of tornadoes and vanished before Duan Tian's eyes. To Han Xuan'ai, a tornado of this level posed no threat to her at all. Duan Tian took a deep breath and moved as well. Whirlwind. At the same time that Duan Tian's figure flashed out, the origin energy between his legs skyrocketed, and the sound of wind and thunder resounded almost at the same time, traversing across the sky. Whoosh. Duan Tian seemed to have transformed into a hurricane as he collided with the row of tornadoes that swept over. For a moment, Duan Tian only felt a strong resistance that prevented him from moving forward. This resistance was getting stronger and stronger. Gradually, Duan Tian's speed involuntarily slowed down. It wasn't that he didn't want to continue moving forward, but the wind that blew towards him was too strong. This was the might of nature. Duan Tian continued to struggle forward, and very soon he collided with the row of tornadoes. Fortunately, Duan Tian raised an origin energy light barrier in time to protect his body. Otherwise, at this very moment he would probably be directly minced into pieces. However, even so, his origin energy light barrier was still on the verge of collapse. The strength of the tornadoes was too strong. My origin energy light barrier will surely be broken in 5 breaths of time at most. When Duan Tian realized this, he became slightly impatient. With his current speed, wanting to break through the obstruction of the tornadoes in a short period of 5 breaths of time was undoubtedly an extremely difficult matter. Now there are only 2 paths before me. The first is to turn back and return to the first level. The second is to ask Xuan'ai to help me. Duan Tian took a deep breath as his thoughts spun abruptly. He was naturally unwilling to turn back and return to the first level just like this. But asking Xuan'ai to help him, even though it was a simple matter, yet he was subconsciously unwilling to do this. Could it be that he had to ask Xuan'ai to help him in everything within the Sword Monarch's treasure? If he didn't have Xuan'ai, then it would be difficult for him to advance even a single step? If it wasn't for Xuan'ai lending a hand in the first level of the Sword Monarch's treasure, then even if I was able to pass through, I would surely not have a share of that sword concept fragment. At any rate, he was a man, and Duan Tian was unable to rely on Han Xuan'ai from the beginning until the end. At least, he was unable to ask Han Xuan'ai for help now. He was unable to pass through this barrier in his heart. Squeak squeak, a sharp cry sounded out by his ears, and it caused Duan Tian to return to his senses. Little gold, I'll surely bring you through. Duan Tian looked at the little gold mouse on his shoulder, and his gaze became even more tenacious. In the past, I didn't have Xuan'ai by my side, yet didn't I still pass through by myself? As soon as this thought finished resounding out in his mind, the layer of origin energy light barrier on the surface of Duan Tian's body was instantly minced into pieces by the tornadoes. On the other hand, Duan Tian's entire body was completely exposed before the tornadoes. Charge! Duan Tian gazed ahead, and through the entire row of tornadoes, he could faintly see Han Xuan'ai who was waiting for him at the other end. Instantly, the origin energy beneath Duan Tian's feet skyrocketed, and the sound of wind and thunder was ear-piercing. A layer of earthen yellow energy appeared on the surface of his body, and his entire body seemed to have transformed into a cannonball as he charged forward. However, the pressure that came from the tornadoes that covered the sky still fiercely smashed onto his body, and it shook him to the point cracks appeared on the earthen yellow energy on the surface of his body. The earthen yellow energy was precisely the defensive martial skill that Duan Tian had executed in a hurry, the Earth Dragon's barrier. But Duan Tian had only comprehended elementary earth force after all, and the defensive strength of the Earth Dragon's barrier was extremely weak. In the blink of an eye, it was blasted into pieces by the Dragon Phoenix tornado. He followed in the footsteps of the origin energy light barrier. The strong winds that covered the sky pressed onto Duan Tian's body, causing Duan Tian's internal organs to tremble, and he was slightly unable to catch his breath. No matter how strong these tornadoes are, it's still wind. Could it be that I, a void initiation stage martial artist that has comprehended first-level wind concept, have to fall at the hands of this tornadoes? Duan Tian's heart was filled with unwillingness. On the surface of his body, strands of azure-colored energy were ceaselessly rising. First-level wind concept. However, the first-level wind concept was similarly unable to withstand the pressure of the tornadoes, and it was suppressed in the blink of an eye. When he saw the first-level wind concept was about to be shattered, Duan Tian instead calmed down. Tornadoes. What? Why must I go head-on against it? A flash of inspiration flashed within his mind, and Duan Tian withdrew the first-level wind concept, and his entire body was situated within the tornadoes as he felt the fierce and vast impact of the tornadoes. Gradually, Duan Tian seemed to have obtained some sort of comprehension, and he felt as if he'd become light as a feather, as if he'd formed some sort of connection with the tornadoes. He moved along with the wind, and he allowed the tornadoes to carry him upwards. Big Brother Ling Tian. Meanwhile, on the other side, Han Xuan'ai had waited for Duan Tian for a while, and when she noticed that Duan Tian still hadn't come over, she hurriedly moved out and passed through the tornadoes once more. Right when she intended to help Duan Tian, she saw Duan Tian who flew along with the tornadoes. At this moment she even had a misconception. Big Brother Ling Tian seemed to have fused into one with the tornadoes. Big Brother Ling Tian. What high comprehension ability. Han Xuan'ai seemed to have discerned something. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. Right at this moment, numerous figures walked down the stairs from the first floor of the Sword Monarch's treasure and arrived at the second floor. It was precisely the other people that had entered the Sword Monarch's treasure. Instantly their clothes fluttered and subsequently they noticed the row of tornadoes. There's someone within the tornadoes. In next to no time, Someone with a sharp gaze noticed the violet-colored figure that was ceaselessly being swept up by the tornadoes. It's Brother Ling Tian. Dong Ming exclaimed in shock. Second-level wind concept. Right at this moment, a wave of excited voices suddenly sounded out and drew the attention of everyone. Subsequently, everyone saw. Chapter 613. After a short moment, the tornado seemed to have lost its target, and it completely disregarded Duan Ling Tian and directly passed through Duan Ling Tian. On the other hand, Duan Ling Tian floated in midair as strands of azure-colored energy suffused around his body, and two ancient horned dragon silhouettes appeared in the sky above him. Second-level wind concept. Duan Ling Tian's attainments in wind concept had improved a step. At the bottom of it all, it's all thanks to this tornado. As he looked at the tornado that swept out from the other side, Duan Ling Tian thought in his heart. At the same time, a wisp of a smile appeared on the corners of his mouth. The breakthrough in wind concept also meant that his strength had improved by a level, and he possessed the strength of an ancient horned dragon. Big Brother Ling Tian, your comprehension ability is so high. You actually comprehended second-level wind concept within the tornado. Suddenly, Han Xuanai arrived by Duan Ling Tian's side and exclaimed with admiration. Duan Ling Tian laughed bitterly. If it wasn't for the fact that he had no other choice, he wouldn't force himself to merge into the tornado and use it to comprehend wind concept. The risk of doing that was truly too great. Of course, he didn't choose to do that without thinking. Because he knew that once he really encountered danger, Han Xuanai would surely lend a hand to save him. It was precisely because of this that he chose to risk it all. Otherwise, he wouldn't go so far as to gamble with his life. Even though he wasn't willing to rely too much on Han Xuanai, but when it came to a life-and-death crisis, he couldn't care so much. Whoosh! Suddenly, Duan Ling Tian heard a wave of wind howling sound out from behind him. Subsequently, a figure took the lead and flashed towards the front of the cavern in a menacing manner. Duan Ling Tian looked carefully and recognized this person. It was precisely the azure-clothed old man, Elder Hu. Presently, Elder Hu dashed towards the distance. Suddenly, waves of scorching aura swept over from afar. That's fire? Duan Ling Tian's pupils couldn't help but constrict as he looked at the flames that covered the sky and assaulted him. These flames clearly appeared out of thin air. Looks like the second level has many inscription formations as well. Han Xuanai's eyes flickered as she spoke. Duan Ling Tian took a deep breath and narrowed his eyes. The memories of the Samsara Emperor Wu flashed through his mind. For a time, he had a certain level of understanding towards these inscription formations that could condense tornadoes and flames that filled the sky. Looks like that martial monarch has mastered quite a number of inscription formations. Duan Ling Tian sighed. Brother Ling Tian, let's go too. When Han Xuanai saw Mr. Hu in the distance pass through the flames and disappear into the flames, she was a little anxious. She took Duan Ling Tian's hand and rushed over there. Duan Ling Tian could only passively be dragged over by Han Xuanai. When they approached the flames, Duan Ling Tian felt his entire body become hot, and sweat couldn't help but drip down his forehead like rain. Sweat dripping down like rain was describing Duan Ling Tian at this moment. Right at this moment. Ice. Han Xuanai's voice sounded out coldly. Instantly, an extremely icy cold aura appeared out of thin air, and it was so cold that Duan Ling Tian couldn't help but shiver and tremble. At this moment, Duan Ling Tian felt as if he was in a world of ice and fire. The icy cold aura temporarily suppressed the flames that covered the sky. Duan Ling Tian easily avoided the flames that covered the sky under Han Xuanai's lead. Now we have both wind and fire in the force of nature. As for water, lightning, and earth, I really jinxed it. While Duan Ling Tian was muttering to himself, he could clearly see the surging and rushing water in the distance. The water was like the raging waves in the sea, and its speed was extremely fast. Looking from afar, one could see the waves rolling over one after another. Even though he was extremely far away, Duan Ling Tian could still clearly feel a wave of extremely powerful pressure sweeping towards him. Boom, 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 boom. The raging waves became faster and faster, and in a short moment they were near Duan Ling Tian and Han Xuanai. The raging waves came from above and crashed down fiercely every time. In the entire cavern, there was not a single place that it did not touch. Therefore, in front of the raging waves, even an emptiness realm martial artist would find it difficult to fly away. Condense. Han Xuanai's voice sounded again. Immediately after, Duan Ling Tian saw. As Han Xuanai slowly raised her hand, An extremely cold strong wind swept out and swept toward the raging waves that were rolling over, completely freezing them. The raging waves a moment ago had completely calmed down at this moment. To be more precise, it was frozen into ice by Han Xuanai. Ice is made of water and colder than water. In front of water, ice has long surpassed its master. Looking at the scene before him, Duan Lingtian could not help but have such a thought in his heart. Let's go, brother Lingtian. Han Xuanai stretched out her slender hand again and held Duan Lingtian's hand. She led Duan Lingtian and stepped on the extremely thick and solid ice as they continued to walk inside. Boom, 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 boom. As soon as they passed the test of water, Duan Lingtian and Han Xuanai heard a series of thunderclaps in the distance. It's the heavenly tribulation. Han Xuanai looked towards the distance and spoke with slight surprise. Duan Lingtian looked over. In the distance, a figure stood in the sky and was resisting the heavenly tribulation that swept down from the sky. This heavenly tribulation looked to be no different than the heavenly tribulation that Duan Lingtian experienced when he just broken through to the void prying stage. However, in terms of thickness, these heavenly tribulation were much more terrifying. The thickness of the heavenly tribulation represented the might of the heavenly tribulation to a certain extent. Elder Hu walked at the front swept through the heavenly tribulation all along the way, and he gradually vanished behind the heavenly tribulation that descended like rain before continuing to head in. Subsequently, Duan Lingtian and Han Xuanai followed over. The heavenly tribulation that covered the sky was extremely terrifying. If it wasn't for Han Xuanai's assistance, even if Duan Lingtian was able to pass through it, he would probably lose half his life. Wind, fire, water, lightning. I've already experienced the 4 types of energy of nature. Looks like it's extremely likely that the energy of earth will appear later. After passing through the area enveloped by the heavenly tribulation, Duan Lingtian thought to himself. The facts proved that Duan Lingtian's guess was correct. The energy that appeared later was precisely the energy of earth. The ground in the distance suddenly shook as if an intense earthquake had occurred. The ground was torn apart, as if it had turned into a huge spider web. The cracks on the spider web were ceaselessly enlarging, and in the blink of an eye numerous terrifying chasms were formed. Not only that, there were enormous rolling rocks that covered the sky that swept over from afar, causing the entire cavern to shake as if it had fallen into the end of the world. Presently, even Elder Hu was in a slightly sorry state. Those rolling rocks seemed to be extremely hard. Even if Elder Hu made a move, it was difficult to shatter them, and he could only rely on his movement technique to dodge. Swoosh. Han Xuanai held Duan Lingtian's hand as she took the lead and easily dodged the rolling rocks, and she even surpassed Elder Hu. Now, the energy of earth has appeared as well. It wouldn't be ice at the back, right? Duan Lingtian's heart jerked as he thought to himself. If it was ice, then he wouldn't be afraid since he had Han Xuanai by his side. But the others would probably be struck with misfortune. But this time, Duan Lingtian's thoughts didn't come true. After passing through the area enveloped by the energy of earth, the cavern ahead no longer activated the inscription formation, and it was completely silent. Then Duan Lingtian and Han Xuanai continued forward. A turn appeared in front of them. Behind the turn, a stone platform appeared before the eyes of Duan Lingtian and Han Xuanai. On the stone platform there was a single jade piece placed all by itself. But the attention of Duan Lingtian and Han Xuanai wasn't on the high platform and the jade slip on the high platform. Their gazes were attracted by the 10 stairs behind the stone platform. Before these stairs was a small stone platform, and an exquisite box was placed on the stone platform. The box was spotless, and it seemed as if it wasn't a product of the same era as the box Duan Lingtian and Han Xuanai saw on the first level. It's an inscription formation again. When Duan Lingtian's spiritual force swept out and approached the 10 stairs that were distributed all over, he noticed that something was off at the first possible moment. There was an inscription formation enveloping the surroundings of each of these stairs. These inscription formations were recorded in the memories of Samsara Emperor Wu. Even though they didn't possess any offensive ability, they had the restriction of allowing entry and not exit. In other words, anyone could choose to enter one of these inscription formations, and they could easily enter without any pressure. However, it was almost impossible for him to get out of there. Unless one possessed a strength that was even more formidable than the person that set up these inscription formations. The person that set up these inscription formations was undoubtedly the martial monarch that left behind the sword monarch's treasure. Not to mention Duan Lingtian and the group of people behind him. Even Han Xuanai's strength was far inferior to a martial monarch stage expert. Big brother Lingtian. Duan Lingtian was still surprised when Han Xuanai's voice had already sounded out, and it contained slight pleasant surprise. Unknowingly, Han Xuanai had already arrived at the nearby stone platform and picked up the jade slip on it. It's a sound transmission jade slip? After Duan Lingtian approached Han Xuanai, he quickly recognized the jade slip. What's recorded in this jade slip? Duan Lingtian asked curiously. Big brother Lingtian, you should listen to it yourself. Han Xuanai passed the jade slip to Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian stretched out his hand to receive it and fused his origin energy into it, and a wave of clear voice entered into his ears in a timely manner. No matter who it is, it's truly rare to be able to enter the second level of my cenotaph and pass the test of the 5 forces of nature. There's a total of 10 stairs in front of all of you. I presume all of you have seen it as well. These 10 stairs and the boxes on the small stone platforms beside them are all enveloped by the same inscription formation. Once one chooses to enter a certain staircase, one can't leave and can only continue walking. Chapter 6:14. The 10 concept fragments are respectively 2 wind concept fragments, 2 fire concept fragments, 2 lightning concept fragments, 2 water concept fragments, and 2 earth concept fragments. Duan Lingtian found out what was contained within the box on the small stone platform at the side of the 10 stairs ahead from the voice transmission jade slip. Subsequently, a voice sounded out successively from the voice transmission jade slip. The 10 concept fragments from left to right are respectively the wind concept fragment, the fire concept fragment, the lightning concept fragment. The message on the voice transmission jade slip described the distribution of concept fragments in detail. Amongst the 10 concept fragments, the worst is a first-level advanced concept fragment, and the best is a 6th-level advanced concept fragment. What level of concept fragment you're able to obtain will depend on your own luck. Besides that, the message also roughly explained the level of the 10 concept fragments. The highest level was a 6th-level advanced concept fragment. What sort of concept was a 6th-level advanced concept? Not to mention anything else, just take the sword concept fragment that Duan Lingtian obtained on the first level as an example. That sword concept fragment was a 3rd-level advanced concept fragment, and the 3rd-level advanced concept contained within it was comparable to the strength of 400 ancient horned dragons. Whereas a 6th-level advanced concept fragment was even more terrifying, and the 6th-level advanced concept within it was comparable to the strength of 700 ancient horned dragons. It was even better than the sword concept fragment. My cenotaph has a total of 3 levels. The 3rd level below here is also the last level, and it changes unpredictably, and the tests for people with different cultivations are different. Only a single person is allowed to enter each stairway. Once someone enters the inscription formation that enveloped the stairway would undergo a change, and it would change from entry but not exit, to entry and exit. Whereas after entering the inscription formation and obtaining a concept fragment, there's only a single path, and that is to continue to the 3rd level's test. The way out is in the 3rd level. Besides that, the rewards of the 3rd level's test are the most. The voice stopped abruptly when it spoke up to hear. Duan Lingtian also understood. The Sword Monarch's treasure seems to be the cenotaph of that martial monarch, and it has a total of 3 levels. The test of the 3rd level is set according to the cultivation of the person that enters the 3rd level. Moreover, only a single person can enter every single staircase that leads to the 3rd level. Duan Lingtian looked at the 10 steps in front of him and his eyes flashed. In other words, among us only the first 10 people to enter will have a chance to enter the 3rd level. Those who come later will lose their chance. Thinking of this, Duan Lingtian could not wait. Big brother Lingtian, looks like we'll have to part ways here. 5 concept of nature fragments, which one are you going to choose? Han Xuanai looked at Duan Lingtian and asked. Duan Lingtian didn't hesitate. Concept of wind fragment. Although Duan Lingtian had some understanding of wind, thunder, and earth, he had only comprehended the 2nd-level elementary concept in the aspect of wind. Lightning was merely the minute force. As for the earth, it was only the force of elementary comprehension. If he chose the wind concept fragment, then once he obtained it, Duan Lingtian would be able to rely on it to comprehend wind concept a step further at the first possible moment. With the assistance of the wind concept fragment and Duan Lingtian's comprehension ability, that wasn't bad. His advancement in wind concept would surely advance by leaps and bounds. 2 wind concept fragments, which one are you going to choose, big brother Lingtian? The quality of these two concept fragments might not be the same. Han Xuan'ai asked again. I'll randomly choose one. Duan Lingtian shrugged and spoke casually. Presently the people behind hadn't arrived yet, so Duan Lingtian could freely choose. But besides his choice, Duan Lingtian didn't forget the little gold mouse. Little gold, do you see those 10 boxes? Within those boxes, Duan Lingtian told little gold word by word about the profundity of those 10 boxes. 2 lightning concept fragments? Little gold's eyes lit up and she said with a childish voice, there are records of soul fragments within my inherited memories. That's an extremely formidable thing. Little gold, choose a lightning concept fragment and enter the stairway. I believe that with your strength, you'll surely be able to smoothly pass through the 3rd level's test and obtain numerous rewards. Duan Lingtian encouraged the little gold mouse. Squeak squeak, instantly the little gold mouse cried out excitedly and she said with a childish voice, Big brother Lingtian, I won't disappoint you. Those 2 are lightning concept fragments, choose one of them. Duan Lingtian pointed at the box that contained the 2 lightning concept fragments as he spoke to the little gold mouse. Squeak. The little gold mouse cried out before transforming into a bolt of lightning that flashed directly towards the box that contained the lightning concept fragment on the right. Along with the little gold mouse opening the box, a violet-colored fragment appeared in her hand. This time, Duan Lingtian didn't dare use his spiritual force to inspect it again. He could only follow the memories of Samsara Emperor Wu to see if there was any other method to discern what level of concept fragment this was. 6th level concept fragment. Duan Lingtian hadn't recovered from his shock when the nearby Han Xuan'ai had already cried out in surprise. Only advanced concept, void transformation concept, was able to truly condense into form a concept fragment. So, when Xuan'ai said the violet-colored fragment in the little gold mouse's hand was a 6th level concept fragment, it was undoubtedly a 6th level advanced concept fragment. 6th level advanced lightning concept fragment? Duan Lingtian's face froze. He never imagined that the little gold mouse's luck would be so good to actually choose the highest level concept fragment amongst the 10 concept fragments. When she heard Han Xuan'ai's voice, little gold cried out complacently before charging towards the stairway. Big brother Lingtian, big sister Xuan'ai, I'm going. Before the little gold mouse's figure completely vanished on the stairway, her childish voice sounded out from afar and entered into the ears of Duan Lingtian and Han Xuan'ai. This little fellow? Duan Lingtian shook his head and smiled. On the other hand, Han Xuan'ai started laughing as well. Little Gold's luck isn't bad. I wonder how Little Black and Little White's luck is. Han Xuan'ai raised her hand and asked the 2 little pythons to come out. Little Black, Little White. Both of you heard what Big Brother Lingtian said to Little Gold earlier, right? Han Xuan'ai looked at the 2 little pythons that were slightly eager and asked with a light smile. Hiss hiss, the 2 little pythons flicked their tongues as they nodded. At this moment, their gazes were sizing up the remaining 9 boxes that hadn't been opened, and they were obviously attracted by the concept fragments within them. Little Gold, you've comprehended wind concept, Little White, you've comprehended fire concept. Those 2 boxes contain wind concept fragments, and those 2 boxes contain fire concept fragments. Han Xuan'ai guided the 2 little pythons. Hiss hiss, the 2 little pythons hurriedly nodded when they heard this. Big brother, I'm going. Big brother Little Black and I will be going first. Before Little Black and Little White transformed into 2 black and white bolts of lightning that flashed out, they didn't forget to send a voice transmission to Duan Lingtian. This caused Duan Lingtian to be unable to refrain from smiling. After a short moment, Little Black withdrew an azure-colored concept fragment from one of the boxes. 3rd level advanced concept fragment. Now, through the memories of Samsara Emperor Wu, Duan Lingtian, who knew how to discern the level of a concept fragment from its outer appearance, was able to discern the level of the concept fragment in Little Black's mouth with a single glance. Meanwhile, Han Xuan'ai exclaimed in a low voice. The little black snake drooped its head and was dispirited when it heard this. It had always taken the little gold mouse to be its opponent. Now, its opponent had obtained a 6th level advanced concept fragment, whereas it had only obtained a 3rd level advanced concept fragment. This caused it to be extremely displeased. Little Black, a 3rd level advanced concept fragment is already not bad. Go to the 3rd floor. Duan Lingtian smiled as he consoled. As the saying goes, a man whose heart is content is like a snake trying to swallow an elephant. These words didn't seem to be spoken without reason. Hiss hiss, The little black snake nodded lightly and glanced at Han Xuanai before reluctantly flashing up the stairway and vanishing before the eyes of Duanling Tian and Han Xuanai. Meanwhile, the little white snake withdrew its fire concept fragment as well. 4th level advanced concept fragment. Han Xuanai exclaimed in a low voice once more. Before Han Xuanai exclaimed in a low voice, Duanling Tian had discerned the level of the fire concept fragment hanging in the little white snake's mouth, so he wasn't surprised. The little white snake's eyes flashed when it heard this, and it seemed to be slightly excited. Perhaps, it was excited that its choice had surpassed the little black snake. Subsequently, the little white snake entered the stairway as well. For a time, the 3 little fellows each chose a path to enter the 3rd floor. They'd occupied 3 positions to enter the 3rd floor of the Sword Monarch's treasure. There were still 7 positions remaining. Xuanai, which concept fragment do you intend to choose? Duanling Tian looked at Han Xuanai and asked curiously. Han Xuanai's attainments in ice concept were extremely deep, and he'd witnessed it on many occasions with his own 2 eyes. On the other hand, even though there were 5 types of concept fragments before him, there wasn't any ice concept. I intend to choose an earth concept fragment. Han Xuanai smiled. Duanling Tian nodded. The earth concept fragment isn't bad. Amongst the concepts of nature, if the earth concept relies on the earth to execute and draw support from the energy of the earth, then it far surpasses the other concepts of nature. As far as Duanling Tian was concerned, Han Xuanai's choice was extremely rational. Swoosh. Right at this moment, a figure swept over like the wind and appeared before Duanling Tian and Han Xuanai. It's this old fellow again. Duanling Tian looked at the old man and frowned. The old man was precisely the azure-clothed old man that had come with Dong Ming, and he was Elder Hu. Presently, Elder Hu had picked up the voice transmission jade slip on the stone platform and quickly understood the scene before him and the rules of the 3rd floor of the Sword Monarch's treasure. 3 concept fragments are missing. According to the words on the voice transmission jade slip, the lightning concept fragment, wind concept fragment, and fire concept fragment are each missing. Chapter 6:15. However, right at this moment, don't move. A cold and grim shout sounded out abruptly, causing Elder Hu's figure to stiffen and stop on the spot. Elder Hu turned his head slightly and saw the nearby violet-clothed young man looking at him with an extremely calm expression. Earlier, it was precisely the violet-clothed young man that had shouted out to stop him. Elder Hu's face sank. A mere 3rd-level void initiation stage kid dared be presumptuous before him? But when he thought of the terrifying strength of the young woman by the young man's side, he worked hard to suppress the flames of rage in his heart and asked with a low voice, "Do you need something?" Duanling Tian glanced indifferently at Elder Hu. As the saying goes, everything has a first come first served. Up until now, Xuanai and I have arrived here earlier than you. Now we haven't even chosen, yet you want to choose? Elder Hu took a deep breath when he heard this. Then both of you choose first. When he thought of how terrifying the yellow-clothed young woman was, no matter how much he wanted to kill the violet-clothed young man before him, no matter how much he hated the violet-clothed young man for using his connections to intimidate others, he had no other way. The situation was stronger than the person. Xuanai. Duanling Tian looked at Han Xuanai. Big brother Ling Tian, you go in first, so as to avoid this old bastard playing any tricks. Han Xuanai's face bloomed into a smile when she looked at Duanling Tian, whereas when she inadvertently looked at Elder Hu, the smile on her face vanished and was replaced by a layer of frost. This caused Elder Hu to be unable to refrain from shivering. All right. Duanling Tian nodded, and then his figure flashed out to directly enter the inscription formation that contained the final wind concept fragment. There were only 2 wind concept fragments. One of them was obtained by the little black snake. It was a 3rd-level advanced concept fragment. I wonder what level this wind concept fragment left behind for me would be. Duanling Tian was slightly anticipating it. As he stood before the small stone platform at the side of the stairway, Duanling Tian's hand slowly stretched out towards the box on the small stone platform. Opening the box, an azure-colored fragment lay silently there. At this moment, Duanling Tian's perturbed expression vanished without a trace, and it was replaced by pleasant surprise. A 5th-level advanced wind concept fragment. Even though the wind concept fragment he chose was inferior to the lightning concept fragment the little gold mouse chose, it was still much stronger than the wind concept fragment the little black snake chose. Duanling Tian took a deep breath and put away the concept of wind fragment with some excitement. In the distance, Han Xuanai's eyes brightened when she saw the concept fragment in Duan Lingtian's hand. She hurriedly congratulated Duan Lingtian. "Congratulations, big brother Lingtian." Duan Lingtian responded with a smile, and then he put the concept fragment into his storage ring. "Xuanai, I'll head down first." Duan Lingtian greeted Xuanai before continuing to descend the flight of stairs. He headed to the third level of the Sword Monarch's treasure, which was also the final level. He wasn't worried about Han Xuanai's safety. Not to mention the third level had different tests set according to one's cultivation. Just Xuanai's formidable strength wasn't something anyone could compare to. Duan Lingtian walked down the stairs, and an expanse of gray and hazy mist appeared before his eyes once more. He hadn't completely passed through the mist when Duan Lingtian felt a wave of scorching aura assault his face. It wouldn't be that inscription formation that condenses flames again, right? Duan Lingtian guessed in his heart. Only when Duan Lingtian completely walked out of the mist did he realize that he guessed wrongly. Presently, even though what appeared before his eyes was similarly a vast cavern, but there was a great deal of lava flowing within the cavern. This place was like the interior of a volcano, and it gave one an oppressive feeling. Of course, with Duan Lingtian's current cultivation, he was utterly unafraid of the lava before him. His gaze descended onto the 3-foot-long blades that were stuck all over the lava. These 3-foot-long blades were of various shapes and sizes, and they were scattered all over the cavern. When looked at from afar, this place seemed to be a sword tomb. A sword tomb was the place where swords were buried. These swords, Duan Lingtian's spiritual force swept out at the first possible moment to detect these swords before him, whereas his calm expression revealed a wisp of shock. They're all swords that are grade 3 spirit weapons or above. Amongst them there's no lack of grade 2 spirit swords. Duan Lingtian's mood surged. The 3-foot-long blades that were scattered all over the place shocked him. Even though he could be considered to be a grade 3 weapons craftsman now and was able to refine grade 3 spirit swords. But the materials to refine grade 3 spirit swords weren't so easy to find. It was even to the extent that he hadn't even found all the materials to refine a grade 3 spirit weapon cauldron that was comparatively simpler. Unknowingly, Duan Lingtian continued walking deeper in. He'd only taken a few steps when Duan Lingtian's vigilant spiritual force felt a wave of gentle fluctuation come from beneath his feet. He wasn't unfamiliar with this fluctuation. An inscription formation. Duan Lingtian's expression became serious. He knew that he'd activated an inscription formation. Whereas now, what he had to do was to deal with all the tests that the inscription formation brought about. But after waiting for a while, Duan Lingtian didn't notice anything wrong. What's going on? I can be sure that the fluctuation from before was indeed an inscription formation without a doubt. Duan Lingtian was slightly puzzled. Could it be that the inscription formation had decayed after a long period of time? Right when Duan Lingtian was slightly surprised and bewildered. Lucky Jr. This is the third level of the cenotaph that I left behind. I can be sure that your cultivation is at the third level of the void initiation stage, and the following tests will be carried out according to this cultivation. A sudden voice seemed to sweep over from all directions and entered into Duan Lingtian's ears. It's him. Duan Lingtian's pupils constricted. He was able to discern it. This voice was exactly the same as the voice he heard from the voice transmission jade slips in the first and second levels of the Sword Monarch's treasure. It was the same person. Sword Monarch. Duan Lingtian understood that this was the voice that the Sword Monarch left behind. This inscription formation ought to be an inscription formation that combines the sound transmission inscription and various other inscriptions together, and it's capable of detecting the cultivation of others. In next to no time, Duan Lingtian guessed the effect of the inscription formation he activated earlier. It was none other than detecting his cultivation and warning him through the sound transmission inscription. Even though this inscription formation is ordinary, it isn't something that anyone can set up. It at least requires a spiritual force at the martial monarch stage or above. With the memories of Emperor Wu of Samsara, Duan Lingtian knew the various inscription formations in detail. The Sword Monarch's voice didn't stop and continued. The third level of my cenotaph has a total of 6 tests. Amongst them, 3 tests one's wisdom and aren't dangerous in the slightest. The other 3 tests one's strength, and the slightest mistake might cause one to die directly. After arriving at the third level of the cenotaph, there's no path of retreat. Unless one passes through the 3 tests of strength, otherwise the path that leads to the exit won't appear. The voice continued to sound out, causing Duan Lingtian to feel even more pressured. Won't appear? Doesn't that mean that if I'm unable to pass through the 3 tests of strength, then I'll be left here forever? Of the 6 tests, the first, third, and fifth tests one's wisdom, the second, fourth, and sixth tests one's strength. The person that passes all the tests first will obtain my inheritance. The voice sounded out once more, and it caused Duan Lingtian's eyes to be unable to help but light up. Inheritance? At this instant, Duan Lingtian felt his breathing become hurried. Never had he imagined that this sword monarch's treasure was actually set up by the martial monarch for the sake of his inheritance. He originally thought that it was only a small game of the martial monarch, and there weren't any precious treasures within. But now it would seem that he was wrong, extremely wrong. Wait. Suddenly, Duan Lingtian thought of something. That martial monarch kept saying that this is his cenotaph. Isn't a cenotaph a place where the belongings of the dead are stored? Could it be that the martial monarch left behind a cenotaph before his death? When he thought up to here, Duan Lingtian's heartbeat became even faster, and his chest rose and fell like a bellows, and he was unable to calm down for a long time. Something left behind by a martial monarch before his death. Would it be something simple? Perhaps everything that the martial monarch left behind throughout his lifetime is here. But even though the rewards of the 3rd level are numerous, they're divided into 10 portions. If I want to obtain the best reward, then I must be the first to pass through the 6 great tests set up by the martial monarch. When he thought up to here, Duan Lingtian's mood calmed down. He knew that he had to rely on himself for everything that followed. Now he was all alone. But according to the message left behind by the martial monarch, the tests of the 3rd level were set up according to my cultivation. I presume that besides the 3 tests of wisdom, I'll be able to deal with the other 3 tests of strength. Duan Lingtian thought to himself. Now I'll begin the first test. Duan Lingtian knew that every moment and second was extremely precious now, and he had to pass through all the tests in the shortest amount of time. Only in this way would he be able to obtain the inheritance of the martial monarch. Would the inheritance left behind by the martial monarch be something simple? Duan Lingtian didn't think so. Perhaps the martial monarch passed away here. If it's like this, then perhaps there's a profundity fragment within his skull. When he thought up to here, Duan Lingtian's mood that had calmed down surged once more. Profundity fragment. It contained the martial monarch's comprehension towards profundity. On the other hand, profundity was an existence that stood above concept. Even the lowest level of profundity, 1st level profundity, contained 2 times the strength of 9th level advanced concept. 9th level advanced concept was comparable to the strength of 1,000 ancient horned dragons. 1st level profundity was comparable to the strength of 2,000 ancient horned dragons. 9th level profundity was even comparable to the strength of 10,000 ancient horned dragons. At that time, the 10,000 ancient horned dragon silhouettes condensed from the energy of the heavens and the earth would undergo a transformation and transform into a completely new phenomenon of the heavens and the earth. But even if I obtain a profundity fragment, I'm temporarily unable to use it. A profundity fragment stands above a concept fragment, and only someone that has comprehended 9th level advanced concept and profundity is able to comprehend profundity from it. Duan Lingtian heaved a sigh of relief. For example, if a wind profundity fragment appeared within the remains of the martial monarch. Chapter 616. Currently, even if Duan Lingtian obtained the wind profundity fragment, he could only temporarily keep it as a backup. But even if I can't use it for now, it's not bad to keep it as a backup. Duan Lingtian thought to himself. Profundity fragment. Even if it's the great treasure that Emperor Wu prepared for his 3rd lifetime during his 2nd lifetime, there seems to only be 3. Profundity fragments were usually only martial monarchs that were able to nurture them. Moreover, there weren't many martial monarchs on Cloud Continent, and there were absolutely no more than 100 living martial monarchs. In such a large Cloud Continent, there were no more than 100 martial monarchs, so the preciousness of a profundity fragment was obvious. Moreover, a martial monarch stage expert only needed a single thought to detonate a profundity fragment. So even if someone was able to kill a martial monarch stage expert, the person would most likely be unable to obtain the martial monarch stage expert's profundity fragment. Presently, practically all the profundity fragments on Cloud Continent were left behind by martial monarchs after they passed away. There were very few profundity fragments obtained from killing martial monarchs. The preciousness of a profundity fragment was obvious. What's the first test of wisdom? Duan Lingtian couldn't help but be slightly stunned when he noticed that the martial monarch's voice didn't move any longer. Let's continue forward and take a look. After waiting for a while without any movement, Duan Lingtian continued forward. In next to no time, a familiar fluctuation spread out beneath Duan Lingtian's feet, and it was precisely another inscription formation that had been activated. It's coming? Duan Lingtian's heart constricted, and he couldn't help but become vigilant. Right at this moment, the martial monarch's voice sounded out once more, and this time it seemed to be cold and indifferent, and it didn't contain the slightest emotion. The first test of wisdom. Find the one and only grade 1 spirit sword in the sword tomb and pull it out. If you choose wrongly and fail the test, no matter if you succeed or fail, the sword you pull out will be the reward you obtained in the first test. The remaining swords will be buried underground and never see the light of day again. The martial monarch's voice stopped abruptly here. Grade 1 spirit sword? Duan Lingtian's pupils constricted, and he started to look around the surroundings. He knew clearly in his heart that the sword tomb mentioned by the martial monarch was probably referring to this cave filled with lava and swords. However, there was actually a grade 1 spirit sword among these swords? Grade 1 spirit sword. Even if the level of the weapon craftsman who refined the grade 1 spirit sword was mediocre, it was still a grade 1 spirit weapon after all. The amplification would be at least 87%. An increase of 87%, what sort of concept was that? Even the grade 4 spirit sword in Duan Lingtian's hand that he refined himself only provided a 60% amplification. However, the difficulty of finding the only grade 1 spirit sword among so many spirit swords is really not small. There are at least over 100 swords here, and grade 3 spirit swords occupy almost 90% of them, and grade 2 spirit swords only occupy 10%. Unless it's a high-grade weapon craftsman with unique experience. Otherwise, it's very difficult to distinguish what's different about these spirit swords. Duan Lingtian's gaze casually swept past these spirit swords. Even if he used his spiritual force to investigate and coupled with the experience he'd inherited from Emperor Wu of Samsara, he wasn't able to notice which sword was a grade 1 spirit sword. Let alone the others. If the others were to encounter this test, they would at most obtain a grade 3 spirit sword. However, even if it's only a grade 3 spirit sword, it can already be considered as a precious treasure to martial artists that haven't walked out of the foreign lands. Duan Lingtian thought to himself. If I'm unable to find a grade 1 spirit sword, then even if I'm able to obtain a grade 2 spirit sword or a grade 3 spirit sword, I'll still be considered to have failed the test. Duan Lingtian took a deep breath before walking out and starting to carefully size up the surroundings. After looking for a long time, Duan Lingtian confirmed it. There was a total of 103 spirit swords here. Amongst them, 90 were grade 3 spirit swords and the other 13 were grade 2 spirit swords. What's going on? Isn't there a grade 1 spirit sword? Duan Lingtian was dumbfounded. Even if he wanted to scam someone, he shouldn't do it like this, right? Duan Lingtian shook his head and carefully sized up the 103 spirit swords before him again. In the end, he still came up empty-handed. I'm sure there's no grade 1 spirit sword among the 103 spirit swords here. Duan Lingtian was extremely certain. What a joke. Although he was only a grade 3 weapons craftsman now, he had the memories of Samsara Emperor Wu in his mind. His judgment was no different from Samsara Emperor Wu's. When Samsara Emperor Wu was at his peak, he was a royal grade weapons craftsman that surpassed grade 1 weapons craftsman and quasi-royal grade weapons craftsman. Even if a grade 1 spirit weapon was placed in front of Samsara Emperor Wu, Samsara Emperor Wu would not even spare it a glance. Perhaps, in the eyes of Samsara Emperor Wu, a grade 1 spirit weapon was no different from trash. That martial monarch isn't playing with me, right? Duan Lingtian frowned. With a quick thought, Duan Lingtian dispelled this thought. Since that martial monarch set up such a test, he would presumably not do it for no reason. Perhaps that grade 1 spirit sword is hidden somewhere else. When he thought up to here, Duan Lingtian's attention no longer revolved around the 103 spirit swords that were inserted into the ground, and he sized up the surroundings of the cavern instead. This cavern couldn't be considered to be large when compared to the first and second levels of the Sword Monarch's treasure. After casually taking a few steps, everything within the cavern appeared before Duan Lingtian's eyes. In this cavern that was covered in lava, besides the 103 spirit swords that were inserted into the ground, there was also a pile of scrap metal that was scattered around the cavern. These pieces of scrap metal were mostly sword embryos and the like. The martial monarch that left behind the Sword Monarch's treasure wouldn't be a weapons craftsman as well, right? Duan Lingtian guessed in his heart. Besides the 103 spirit swords that are inserted into the ground, the remaining are all scrap metal. Now, I can confirm that there isn't a grade 1 spirit sword amongst the 103 spirit swords. Could it be that the grade 1 spirit sword is hidden within this pile of scrap metal? When he thought up to here, the thoughts in Duan Lingtian's heart grew even stronger. Search, search, search. Subsequently, Duan Lingtian started searching carefully within the scrap metal. In the end, he really did notice an inkling. Swish. With a raise of his hand, Duan Lingtian pushed the pile of scrap metal to the side. At the same time, a simple and unadorned sword embryo appeared before Duan Lingtian's eyes. At this moment, it was a sword embryo that had yet to undergo the final step of weapon refinement, and it was extremely ugly and black. However, the sword embryo had a sword hilt and a sword blade, so it could be used as a sword, but it was only slightly ugly. At this moment, a part of this ugly sword embryo was inserted into the cavern wall. If it wasn't for the fact that I have the memories of the royal grade weapons craftsman, Emperor Wu of Samsara, I'm afraid I would have failed this test of wisdom. Who would have thought that a black sword embryo that was hidden within a piece of scrap metal would actually be a grade 1 spirit sword? Looking at the extremely ugly sword embryo before him, Duan Lingtian had a wry smile on his face. After confirming that this sword embryo was a grade 1 spirit sword, Duan Lingtian did not hesitate and raised his hand to grab the sword hilt, preparing to pull it out. Just when Duan Lingtian's hand touched the sword hilt, whoosh, a strong light suddenly flashed before Duan Lingtian's eyes, causing him to be unable to help but close his eyes. When he opened his eyes again, he noticed that the remaining 103 spirit swords and the surrounding scrap metal had vanished into thin air within this cavern that was filled with lava. Only the ugly sword embryo in his hand was left in the entire cavern. Congratulations, you've passed the first test of wisdom and obtained a grade 1 spirit sword. At the same time, Duan Lingtian heard a voice that sounded out from the ugly sword embryo in his hand. The sound-condensing inscription left behind by that martial monarch is really everywhere. Duan Lingtian shook his head and smiled as he pulled out the sword embryo. The sound-condensing inscription was similar to a sound-condensing jade slip, and it could be used as a medium to leave a message. The latter required origin energy to be activated. The former only required someone to touch it before it could be activated by itself. This grade 1 spiritual sword is truly a little ugly. Looking at the ugly sword embryo in his hand, Duan Lingtian shook his head and laughed bitterly. I wonder to what extent the amplification of such an ugly grade 1 spirit sword is. Duan Lingtian thought in his heart as he released the origin energy in his hand and pressed it into the extremely ugly sword embryo, intending to test its amplification. Whoosh. In practically an instant, the energy of heaven and earth above Duan Lingtian roiled before developing into numerous ancient horned dragon and ancient mammoth silhouettes in the end. There were a total of 7 ancient horned dragon silhouettes. There were an entire 5,200 ancient mammoth silhouettes. I'm currently at the 3rd level of the void initiation stage, and without using a spirit weapon or concept, my strength is comparable to the strength of 4 ancient horned dragons. In other words, the amplification is the strength of 3 ancient horned dragons plus the strength of 5,200 ancient mammoths. Duan Lingtian pondered briefly before confirming in the end. This grade 1 spirit sword is able to amplify strength by 88%. It can be considered to be not bad amongst grade 1 spirit weapons. Duan Lingtian looked at the sword embryo and nodded, then laughed bitterly. But this sword is truly too ugly. I'm really embarrassed to take it out in front of others. Up until now, Duan Lingtian was still unable to let go of the appearance of this grade 1 spirit sword. After returning to his senses, Duan Lingtian held the grade 1 spirit sword tightly in his hand. According to the message left behind by the martial monarch earlier, the second test would be a test of strength. Even though Duan Lingtian didn't know exactly what the next test of strength would be, it was undoubtedly a test that would test his strength. Presently, as he held the grade 1 spirit sword, Duan Lingtian felt his confidence increase greatly. Presently, I'm able to exert the strength of 7 ancient horned dragons and over 5,000 ancient mammoths by relying on the grade 1 spirit sword. If I utilize 2nd level wind concept, advanced lightning force and elementary earth force, I'll gain the strength of 2 ancient horned dragons and over 2,000 ancient mammoths. Added together, it's the strength of 9 ancient horned dragons and over 7,000 ancient mammoths. Almost the strength of 10 ancient horned dragons. Chapter 617. With the grade 1 spirit sword in his hand and the strength of almost 10 ancient horned dragons in his body, Duan Lingtian was filled with confidence. No matter what the second test of strength is, I'll sweep through it. Duan Lingtian took a deep breath before taking a large stride forward. According to the experience of the first test of wisdom, he presumably had to activate the second test of strength himself. The facts proved that Duan Lingtian's guess was correct. He'd only taken a few steps when a wave of familiar fluctuation came from beneath his feet, and it was precisely the fluctuation of an inscription formation. The second test is a test of strength. Right at this moment, the martial monarch's words entered into Duan Lingtian's ears once more, and it reverberated like thunder in his ears. Take 3 steps forward and the Origin Shadow inscription formation will be activated. At that time, 106th level Void Initiation Stage Origin Shadow puppets will appear. From the moment the inscription formation is activated, kill all the Origin Shadow puppets within 15 minutes and you'll be considered to have passed the test. The martial monarch spoke of the rules of the second test of strength. 106th level Void Initiation Stage Origin Shadow puppets? Duan Lingtian took a deep breath as bright lights flickered within his eyes. Originally, with his current strength, sweeping through 106th level Void Initiation Stage Origin Shadow puppets that didn't possess spirit weapons or concept to rely on wasn't difficult. After all, even if a 6th level Void Initiation Stage Origin Shadow puppet exerted its full strength, it would only possess the strength of 8 ancient horned dragons. But now he was asked to kill these Origin Shadow puppets within 15 minutes. A quarter of an hour was neither short nor long. With my current strength, it's sufficient to crush 6th level Void Initiation Stage Origin Shadow puppets. I ought to be able to finish killing those Origin Shadow puppets within 15 minutes if I use my full speed and full strength. Duan Lingtian thought in his heart, and his eyes emitted strong confidence as he abruptly took a large stride forward. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. Activate. Instantly, a deep fluctuation of an inscription formation came from beneath Duan Lingtian's feet. Subsequently, numerous human-shaped silhouettes appeared out of thin air around Duan Lingtian, and these human-shaped silhouettes were precisely Origin Shadow puppets. The number of Yuan Shadow puppets continued to soar, and only stopped when it had soared to 100. 100 Origin Shadow puppets floated around Duan Lingtian, filling the entire cavern. Kill. Duan Lingtian's gaze went cold as Origin energy pulsated on the Grade 1 Spirit Sword in his hand, and the 3rd level Wind concept, Advanced Lightning Force and Earth Force rose up along with it. Facing 100 Origin Shadow puppets, Duan Lingtian didn't dare to be the slightest bit negligent. His time was limited. Whoosh! Duan Lingtian's sword flashed out as if transforming into a black bolt of lightning, directly flashing towards the 7 Origin Shadow puppets that were gathered together in the distance. However, these 7 Origin Shadow puppets seemed to be able to predict the future. The moment Duan Lingtian drew his sword, they had already scattered in all directions. Whoosh! In the end, Duan Lingtian's sword only destroyed 1 Origin Shadow puppet. As for the other 7 Origin Shadow puppets, they fled to other places. When faced with the Origin Shadow puppets that pounced over one after another, Duan Lingtian had a cold expression as he continued to draw his sword. Sword drawing arts. The spirit sword in Duan Lingtian's hand occasionally transformed into bolts of lightning, and occasionally condensed into a tempest sword light that swept out to flash towards the Origin Shadow puppets. Needless to say, the Origin Shadow puppets were truly too skilled. Precisely speaking, it was the Origin Shadow puppets that appeared around Duan Lingtian now that were too exquisite. Every sword strike of Duan Lingtian only destroyed 1 Origin Shadow puppet. The other Origin Shadow puppets were always able to dodge in time. This won't do. This won't do. Every sword strike of mine only kills 1 Origin Shadow puppet. How many sword strikes do I have to execute in order to kill 100 Origin Shadow puppets? When he thought of how he only had 15 minutes, Duan Lingtian was extremely anxious. Let me see how all of you dodge in that way. Lightning flashed, Duan Lingtian's gaze lit up as he thought of a method, and the violet clothes on his body fluttered without the wind. Whirlwind. Instantly, Duan Lingtian's entire body seemed to have transformed into a gust of wind that swept towards a corner of the cavern. He floated in midair with his back against the wall, and he stared at the group of Origin Shadow puppets from afar. Whereas the group of Origin Shadow puppets once again charged towards Duan Lingtian. But because Duan Lingtian's back was against the wall, the space they were in was forcefully compressed by 2 times, and the group of Origin Shadow puppets gathered together in a dense group. When he saw the group of Origin Shadow puppets pouncing over, Duan Lingtian tightly leaned against the corner of the wall, and the spirit sword in his hand swept out horizontally. A strength that was close to the strength of 10 ancient horned dragons gushed out. Swish, 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 swish. With a raise of Duan Lingtian's hand, numerous sword lights swept out, seeming to have formed a sword net that enveloped the group of origin shadow puppets. It was like a heaven-encompassing net that firmly trapped them within. The group of origin shadow puppets fled in all directions when they saw Duan Lingtian's sword light descending. But unfortunately, because Duan Lingtian's back was against the corner of the wall, the area they could flee to was extremely narrow. In the blink of an eye, over 10 origin shadow puppets had been annihilated under Duan Lingtian's sword. Satisfying. When this sword strike descended, Duan Lingtian only felt the stuffiness in his chest vanish without a trace, and he felt elated. Along with Duan Lingtian withdrawing his hand, the remaining origin shadow puppets once again pounced towards Duan Lingtian. Although they knew how to dodge at a critical moment, they didn't have the emotions of a human and didn't know fear, so they still instinctively attacked Duan Lingtian. And the outcome could be imagined. Although the origin shadow puppets were numerous, they were unable to withstand the slaughter of Duan Lingtian, who was leaning against the corner of the wall. In less than 15 minutes, 100 origin shadow puppets had been annihilated. Right at this moment. Whoosh. Within the cavern, a gust of strange wind suddenly arose, and then dust suffused the air. Where's the wind coming from? Duan Lingtian looked over curiously. Only now did he notice that at the other corner of the cavern, at the place where dust was emitted, there was an exquisite box. That's the reward of the second test? Duan Lingtian's gaze lit up, and he flew out to descend at the side of the box. Subsequently, he impatiently opened the box. Within the box, a crystalline and translucent pearl silently lay there. Soul Pearl? With a single glance, Duan Lingtian recognized this pearl. It was precisely the soul pearl he'd obtained once before. At that time, after his spiritual force fused with the soul pearl, it underwent a change. It advanced to the point of being 2 levels higher than his cultivation. Now, his cultivation was at the 3rd level of the void initiation stage, whereas his spiritual force had advanced to the 5th level of the void initiation stage because of fusing with the soul pearl that day. It was still 2 levels higher than his cultivation. I wonder if my spiritual force will be able to advance another step after fusing with this soul pearl. Duan Lingtian didn't think and impatiently picked up the soul pearl. Right when he intended to fuse his spiritual force into it, a voice sounded out from within the soul pearl. Congratulations on passing the second test. Next, the third test is a test of wisdom. Walk 5 steps backward and 3 steps to the right to activate the third test. It was another message from the martial monarch. The voice transmission inscription was precisely within the soul pearl. Inscribing a voice transmission inscription within the soul pearl. Looks like that martial monarch's attainments in the Tao of inscriptions isn't shallow. Duan Lingtian thought to himself. After returning to his senses, Duan Lingtian's spiritual force fused into the soul pearl and directly absorbed the pure spiritual force within the soul pearl. After a short moment, Duan Lingtian was able to feel his spiritual force transforming. But the transformation was extremely small. In the end, his spiritual force wasn't even able to break through to the 6th level of the void initiation stage. Soul pearls had better effects when used when one's spiritual force was weak. Perhaps, with another 2 or 3 soul pearls, my spiritual force would be able to transform a step further. What a pity. Duan Lingtian sighed. With a quick thought, Duan Lingtian came to an understanding. Being able to obtain a soul pearl can already be considered to be my luck. I was still too greedy. Duan Lingtian stood up and walked towards the place the martial monarch left behind to activate the third test. The inscription formation arrived as scheduled. The third test is a test of wisdom. Find a secret compartment within the cavern and obtain the thing within the secret compartment. The martial monarch's voice sounded out woodenly. The time limit is 15 minutes. If you haven't found the secret compartment after 15 minutes, then you've failed the test. Find the secret compartment and obtain the thing within it, and that thing will be your reward for passing the third test. Along with the martial monarch's voice vanishing, Duan Lingtian hurriedly flashed towards the corner closest to him in the cavern and carefully sized it up. At the same time, his spiritual force stretched out and didn't miss a single place. He used his spiritual force to sense clues that were unable to be noticed by the naked eye. Duan Lingtian was extremely confident towards his spiritual force. 15 minutes of time. It's sufficient for me to use my spiritual force to search every single corner of the cavern. When he thought up to here, Duan Lingtian heaved a sigh of relief. If he wasn't an inscription master and didn't possess spiritual force, Then he would only use his naked eye to search for the secret compartment the martial monarch spoke of, or use some other method to search for the secret compartment. It was extremely difficult for him to pass through this test in 15 minutes. This test feels as if it's tailor-made for inscription masters. At this moment, Duan Lingtian even had such a misconception. Starting from the corner of the cavern, Duan Lingtian carefully searched for the secret compartment the martial monarch spoke of, his gaze sizing it up from top to bottom, and his spiritual force was all-pervasive. Time silently flowed by. On the other hand, Duan Lingtian seemed as if he didn't know exhaustion, and he seriously searched every single corner of the cavern. Finally, when half of the 15 minutes had passed, Duan Lingtian's spiritual force detected a place that was extremely strange. This place, Duan Lingtian's figure that floated in midair flashed and descended before a cavern wall, and he squatted down and sized up the flat cavern wall before him. If he only used his naked eye to look at it, he would utterly be unable to notice anything wrong with this cavern wall. Slap. Duan Lingtian raised his hand and slapped out with his palm, and his origin energy entered into it. Bang. An enormous bang sounded out, and the cavern wall shook for a moment before splitting into pieces, yet it still didn't reveal anything. If it was another person, perhaps the person would leave and search elsewhere because of this. After all, one wouldn't be able to discern any clues just from looking at the split cavern wall. But Duan Lingtian didn't leave. He really hit it well. Duan Lingtian shook his head and smiled. The origin energy in his hand condensed into form and transformed into a short sword that pierced into the split cavern wall and tore open the crack. Chapter 6:18. Bang. Instantly, the rock on the cavern wall was pulled down by Duan Lingtian. At the same time, an inconspicuous secret compartment appeared before his eyes. I finally found it. The corners of Duan Lingtian's mouth held a smile as he pulled out the secret compartment with a raise of his hand. There was a spatial ring lying quietly in the secret compartment. There's no spatial ring that possesses ownership. Duan Lingtian's eyes lit up, and then he picked up the spatial ring. Looks like the reward of the third test is within this spatial ring. At practically the instant that Duan Lingtian picked up the spatial ring. Congratulations on passing the third test. The fourth test, walk 5 steps to the right, then another 7 steps to the right to open it. A clear voice sounded out from the spatial ring. It was precisely the voice that came from the sound transmission inscription that the martial monarch left behind in the spatial ring. I'll claim ownership of the spatial ring first and see if there's anything good within it. Duan Lingtian pinched open his finger and a drop of blood entered the spatial ring. In the blink of an eye, the storage ring became his. With a thought, the space within the spatial ring appeared within his mind. What a large space. This spatial ring is probably a grade 1 spirit weapon spatial ring without a doubt. Spatial rings were divided into grades as well. Grade 7 spirit weapon spatial rings belong to the lowest grade of spatial rings. The higher the grade of the spatial ring, the larger the storage space within it. For example, the spatial ring in Duan Lingtian's hand was a grade 1 spirit weapon, and the space within it was even larger than the cavern he was in now. But even though the space was large, it was empty. In next to no time, Duan Lingtian was attracted by a pile of milky white stones at the corner. These stones lay there silently, and a portion of them even emitted a faint white glow. Especially one of them, one could faintly see a white glow coiling around it. Origin stones. With a single glance, Duan Lingtian recognized the origin of the stone. Origin stones, the medium of wealth of foreign lands martial artists. In the foreign lands, there were similarly many transactions between martial artists. Besides private transactions, so long as it was in the foreign lands, those inns and restaurants practically didn't accept gold or silver. Only origin stones were accepted. Origin stones were a common currency in the foreign lands, and they were also a medium for martial artists to cultivate. They could help martial artists improve their cultivation rapidly. When I just entered the Sword Monarch's treasure, I was still muttering that if I was able to obtain origin stones within the Sword Monarch's treasure, then I would have profited greatly. I never imagined that origin stones would really appear. Looking at the pile of primordial stones in front of him, Duan Lingtian could not help but exclaim. However, Duan Lingtian's face quickly fell. Are you kidding me? Only 1 upper-grade primordial stone? 100 mid-grade primordial stones and 10,000 low-grade primordial stones. Was this the wealth left behind by a martial emperor? That's too stingy. After counting the number of primordial stones in the pile, Duan Lingtian couldn't help but curse. Such wealth would be considered wealthy in the hands of an ordinary emptiness realm martial artist. However, in the hands of a martial monarch, it was nothing. As someone who had fused with the memories of Emperor Wu, Duan Lingtian was naturally very knowledgeable in this regard. Never mind, it's better than nothing. Duan Lingtian heaved a sigh of relief as he recovered his mood. To him, this pile of primordial stones was something he obtained by chance, and it was better than nothing. If these mid-grade primordial stones and low-grade primordial stones are converted into high-grade primordial stones, then it's only 2 in total. But 3 high-grade primordial stones are sufficient for me to cultivate for a period of time. Duan Lingtian thought to himself. Primordial stones were divided into grades as well. The spirit energy contained within a single high-grade primordial stone was comparable to the spirit energy contained within 100 mid-grade primordial stones, and was comparable to the spirit energy contained within 10,000 low-grade primordial stones. With my current cultivation, even if I only use low-grade primordial stones to cultivate, a single low-grade primordial stone is more or less able to cultivate for an hour. Duan Lingtian thought in his heart as he wore the spatial ring on his hand before standing up and intending to activate the 4th test. The 3rd test from before was a test of wisdom. Now the 4th test was undoubtedly a test of strength. I wonder what test of strength it will be. At the same time that Duan Lingtian walked out, an extremely ugly sword base appeared in his hand. It was precisely the reward he obtained from the 1st test of wisdom, a grade 1 spirit sword. The grade 1 spirit sword in his hand gave Duan Lingtian an extremely great sense of security. Walk 5 steps to the right, then 7 steps to the right. Duan Lingtian followed the message left behind by the martial monarch and walked with large strides towards the place where the 4th test of strength would be activated. He walked over slowly step by step. When his foot descended onto the final step, another wave of the fluctuation of an inscription formation swept out beneath his feet. An exceedingly clear voice entered into Duan Lingtian's ears. The 4th test of strength is called a test of strength. Defeat the 4th level void initiation stage earth puppet that's capable of executing 4th level elementary earth concept. The reward is the earth concept fragment in the earth puppet's possession. The martial monarch's message stopped abruptly at this point. Earth puppet? 4th level elementary earth concept? 4th level void initiation stage? Duan Lingtian's pupils constricted, and he couldn't help but search through the memories of the Samsara Emperor Wu with the intention of wanting to know what the earth puppet was. In next to no time he obtained an answer. The earth puppet was a type of origin shadow puppet condensed from an inscription formation, and it was a strengthened version of the origin shadow puppet. The earth puppet was condensed from an origin shadow puppet combined with the energy of the earth, and it possessed a material body that was completely hard like a rock. Normally speaking, the earth puppet similarly doesn't know how to execute concept. But that martial monarch planted an earth concept fragment into the body of the earth puppet, allowing it to execute earth concept to a certain extent. When he thought up to here, Duan Lingtian gasped. Rumble. Right at this moment, Duan Lingtian felt the ground beneath his feet shake. He raised his head to look over, and only now did he notice that the ground in the distance was shaking as strands of earthen yellow-colored energy of the earth surged out and spread out in the sky. At the same time, a human-shaped figure appeared out of thin air in the sky above the energy of the earth. It was precisely an origin shadow puppet. Subsequently, the energy of the earth poured into the origin shadow puppet, causing the body of the origin shadow puppet to ceaselessly condense, and it seemed as if it had transformed into a material person. Of course, it was impossible for it to be an ordinary person. Presently, the origin shadow puppet had transformed into an earth puppet with an earthen yellow-colored body, and the energy of the earth on its body had condensed into firm rocks that formed a formidable defense. Bang! Right at this moment, the ground shattered into pieces. Cracks that were like spiderwebs stretched out in all directions. Subsequently, swish! An earthen yellow-colored flowing light instantly fused into the body of the earth puppet. Instantly, the eyes of the earth puppet that were originally dim and lusterless suddenly flickered with strands of earthen yellow-colored bright lights, and it caused one to feel a chill run down one's spine. 4th level elementary earth concept coupled with a cultivation at the 4th level of the void initiation stage. Even if he doesn't possess a spirit weapon, he's still capable of exerting the strength of 10 ancient horned dragons. It surpasses my full strength. Duan Lingtian felt pressured. Moreover, this is a cavern that's connected to the ground, and he's able to draw support from the energy of the earth. The cavern is too small, and I'm utterly unable to avoid the earth. Duan Lingtian laughed bitterly. Fourth level elementary earth concept was comparable to the strength of 4 ancient horned dragons. With such an earth concept, mobilizing the energy of the earth was at least capable of mobilizing the strength of another 2 ancient horned dragons. In other words, if the earth puppet exerted its full strength, it was extremely likely that it possessed the strength of 12 ancient horned dragons. For a time, Duan Lingtian felt his breathing almost stop. Unknowingly, the hand that held the Grade 1 spirit sword was already drenched in sweat. That martial monarch is really a cheat. I'm only at the 3rd level of the void initiation stage, yet he asked me to deal with a monster like this. Duan Lingtian couldn't help but curse the martial monarch that left behind the sword monarch's treasure. He could imagine. If that martial monarch heard Duan Lingtian's curses in his heart, perhaps he would be enraged to the point of directly kicking Duan Lingtian out of the sword monarch's treasure, and not allow Duan Lingtian to encroach on his possessions. Swoosh. The earth puppet moved, and it stomped on the ground to arrive before Duan Lingtian in the blink of an eye. The earth puppet raised its hand and punched out with origin energy that skyrocketed, and it was accompanied by a wave of ear-piercing sounds of air exploding as it blasted towards Duan Lingtian. The origin energy was suffused with a deep earthen yellow-colored energy. Earth concept. Instantly, 10 ancient horned dragon silhouettes appeared in the sky above the earth puppet, and they flashed over with an imposing manner that shot into the sky like rainbows. It seemed as if they would only stop after completely suppressing Duan Lingtian. Whirlwind. Duan Lingtian didn't dare dally, and his entire body seemed to have transformed into a gust of wind that barely dodged the earth puppet's punch. After Duan Lingtian dodged it, the earth puppet's punch didn't lose momentum in the slightest as it blasted onto the cavern wall. Bang! Instantly, cracks that were like spiderwebs appeared on the cavern wall, and the entire cavern shook as if an extremely strong earthquake had occurred. As for Duan Lingtian, he instead stood in the sky and wasn't affected. Sword drawing arts. When he saw the earth puppet's back descend before his eyes, Duan Lingtian's gaze went slightly cold, and origin energy condensed on the Grade 1 spirit sword in his hand as he suddenly attacked. Swish. His sword was like a bolt of lightning, and before the earth puppet had even turned around, Duan Lingtian's spirit sword had already touched the earth puppet's body. Clang. A wave of clear sound sounded out, and it caused Duan Lingtian, who originally thought he would be able to defeat the earth puppet because of this, to be completely dumbstruck. The memories of Samsara Emperor Wu flashed within his mind, and Duan Lingtian's face flushed red, and he couldn't help but curse. F***K. You don't have to play like this, right? According to the memories of Samsara Emperor Wu. Because the earth puppet was formed from the energy of the earth and origin shadow puppets, besides possessing a formidable strength, it also possessed an extremely terrifying defensive strength. If the strength of the attack didn't exceed its own strength, then it was utterly unable to harm it in the slightest. In other words, I at least have to possess the strength of over 10 ancient horned dragons before I can defeat it? This is still before it mobilizes the energy of the earth. If it mobilizes the energy of the earth, then wouldn't I have to possess the strength of over 12 ancient horned dragons before I can defeat it? Chapter 619. Duan Lingtian's sword strike had failed, and he could only temporarily dodge the earth puppet's edge. But the earth puppet had a speed that steadily surpassed Duan Lingtian, and when it charged towards Duan Lingtian, it was like an eagle catching a chick. After a short moment, the earth puppet had once again arrived before Duan Lingtian. Its fist smashed out once more, and it contained the strength of 10 ancient horned dragons with an imposing manner that shot into the sky like a rainbow. This time, Duan Lingtian wasn't able to dodge in time, and in a hurry, the Grade 1 spirit sword in his hand shook as it moved to intercept the earth puppet's fist. Bang! The earth puppet's fist smashed down, shaking Duan Lingtian's hand that held the sword to the point the palm between his thumb and index finger split open and dripped with fresh blood. The Grade 1 spirit sword had almost slipped out of his hand as well. The earth puppet's fist was pressed slightly by the strength of the Grade 1 spirit sword in the end, and it avoided Duan Lingtian before fiercely smashing out. The material fist print whistled out and smashed onto the ground as if it was crushing dry weeds. Instantly, the ground quaked and the mountains swayed once more. I can't go on like this. I'll be killed by it sooner or later. Duan Lingtian took a deep breath and used his origin energy to stop his bleeding, then he consumed a great recovery pill before catching his breath and retreating to the other side of the cavern. I can only try if soul skills are effective against it, Duan Lingtian commanded in his mind, and a dim light flickered within his eyes. 1,000 illusions. Instantly, Duan Lingtian constructed an illusory space that enveloped the earth puppet. However, it was completely disregarded by the earth puppet. Looks like even though the earth puppet possesses a material body, its essence is still an origin shadow puppet. It doesn't have a soul and is utterly unaffected by soul skills. Duan Lingtian sighed in his heart. At this moment he realized that even though he'd grasped the soul skill, 1,000 illusions, it was useless before the earth puppet. Meanwhile, the earth puppet continued charging towards Duan Lingtian and unfolded the process of an eagle catching a chick. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. The earth golem's speed completely surpassed the Duan Lingtian, its strength completely surpassed the Duan Lingtian, and its battle with the Duan Lingtian was simply like an adult chasing after a child. Why hasn't it mobilized the earth energy with the earth concept yet? Duan Lingtian was puzzled by this. He believed that if the earth puppet mobilized the energy of the earth, then he would probably be killed by the earth puppet in a single move. Duan Lingtian, who had dodged many times and suffered many injuries, came to a conclusion while being beaten. For some reason the earth golem couldn't draw upon the power of the earth. What's going on? Duan Lingtian couldn't help but feel curious as he hurriedly fled under the pursuit of the earth golem. With a thought, he began to search Emperor Wu's memories. Soon he got his answer. Even if an earth golem were to forcefully fuse with an earth concept fragment, it would still be unable to compare to a human that has comprehended the earth concept. Demon beasts usually mobilize the energy of the earth. Human martial artists or demon beasts can only communicate with the earth through the earth concept and attain a level of intimacy before being able to obtain the acknowledgement of the earth and mobilize the energy of the earth. Whereas the earth puppet doesn't possess intelligence. Its stiff and icy cold body utterly doesn't know how to communicate with the earth through the earth concept. In this way it's naturally unable to mobilize the energy of the earth. Duan Lingtian heaved a sigh of relief. So that's how it is. Although the current earth puppet was still not something that Duan Lingtian could deal with. But the worry in Duan Lingtian's heart still dispersed greatly. At the very least, he was now completely sure that when the earth puppet exerted its full strength, it was only comparable to the strength of 10 ancient horned dragons. Compared to him, it was only stronger by the strength of a few thousand ancient mammoths. Whoosh! A wave of ear-piercing howls of the wind sounded out, causing Duan Lingtian's mind to instantly tense. He knew that the earth puppet had approached him again. Whirlwind. He hurriedly swung his sword backwards, and his entire body seemed to have transformed into a gale that flashed towards the distance. Clang. After the earth puppet's fist that was like a cannonball blasted the grade 1 spirit sword in Duan Lingtian's hand away once more, its momentum didn't reduce in the slightest as it blasted onto the cavern wall at the side with a bang, shaking the cavern wall to the point stone fragments flew into the air, and hideous and terrifying cracks appeared on the wall. Really hurt. Duan Lingtian felt the intense pain that came from the web between his thumb and index finger, and he couldn't help but twitch the corners of his mouth as he frowned. Whoosh! Right at this moment, under Duan Lingtian's gaze, the earth puppet turned around and charged towards him. The body of this earth puppet seems to be heavy, yet its speed isn't slow. Duan Lingtian's gaze inadvertently descended onto the feet of the earth puppet. Presently, the earth puppet had flashed out to pounce towards Duan Lingtian, and its feet rubbed against the ground and flickered with numerous sparks that were like bolts of lightning. These strands of sparks were imprinted within Duan Lingtian's eyes and infinitely enlarged, causing Duan Lingtian's expression to become slightly dumbstruck. Lightning. Lightning? Duan Lingtian muttered, and he seemed to have obtained some sort of comprehension. It seemed as if an instant had passed, yet also seemed as if a century had passed. I understand now. So it turns out that I've taken a wrong path in the past. It's true that lightning belongs to the energy of nature, but it's formed through a certain method as well. That method is similar to friction. Duan Lingtian returned to his senses. Right at this moment, the earth puppet had already arrived before Duan Lingtian, and its fist was ceaselessly enlarging before Duan Lingtian's eyes. It seemed as if it would smash Duan Lingtian flying in the blink of an eye. Bring it on. Duan Lingtian shouted out explosively, and he even didn't have the thought of dodging. Sword drawing arts. In the time it took for a bolt of lightning to flash out, the grade 1 spirit sword in Duan Lingtian's hand flashed out like a shadow, and it moved to intercept the fist of the earth puppet that smashed towards him. In practically an instant, the origin energy and second-level wind concept within Duan Lingtian's body easily fused into the spirit sword. It wasn't just that. Strands of lightning flashed out along with it. Whoosh. In the sky above Duan Lingtian, another ancient horned dragon silhouette appeared out of thin air beside the 9 ancient horned dragon silhouettes and a few thousand ancient mammoth silhouettes. Lightning concept. First level elementary lightning concept. Swish. An ear-piercing sword howl sounded out, and when the grade 1 spirit sword in Duan Lingtian's hand touched the fist of the earth puppet once more, it wasn't blasted away. Instead, it slashed the fist of the earth puppet off like cutting tofu. At the same time, Duan Lingtian's body moved slightly. The sound of wind and thunder resounded. He easily dodged the fist of the earth puppet that was brought out by inertia after being cut off. Bang! The fist that left the body of the earth puppet fiercely smashed onto the wall behind it, and it actually directly embedded itself into the wall. Cracks extended out in the surroundings of the fist, and it seemed to have formed a spider web. On the other hand, Duan Lingtian. Swish, 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 swish. With a raise of his hand, the sword lights in Duan Lingtian's hand seemed to have transformed into a rain that covered the sky, and it descended bit by bit onto the body of the earth puppet. At this moment, the body of the earth puppet that Duan Lingtian was originally unable to injure in the slightest seemed to have become exceedingly weak tofu, and it was easily shattered into over 100 pieces by Duan Lingtian. Bang, 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 bang. The remnants of the earth puppet fell to the ground successively, and they were numerous solid earthen yellow rocks. At the same time, an earthen yellow fragment appeared within Duan Lingtian's field of vision, and it fell along with the numerous earthen yellow rocks. Duan Lingtian's heart shook when he saw this earthen yellow fragment, and his gaze abruptly lit up. 7th level Advanced Earth Concept Fragment. This concept fragment was even better than the 6th level Advanced Lightning Concept Fragment that Little Gold obtained earlier. Duan Lingtian moved like a bolt of lightning to grab the Earth Concept Fragment in his hand, and his mood surged. Right at this moment, the voice of the martial monarch sounded out from the Earth Concept Fragment and entered into Duan Lingtian's ears. Congratulations on passing the 4th test. The 5th test is activated by walking 9 steps backward and 3 steps to the left. Obviously, the sound condensing inscription left behind by the martial monarch was within the Earth Concept Fragment. After returning to his senses, Duan Lingtian carefully sized up the concept fragment in his hand for a while. After confirming that he wasn't dreaming, he put it away in his spatial ring as if he'd obtained a precious treasure. This time, it was all thanks to this earth puppet that I was able to comprehend lightning concept in a hurry. Duan Lingtian sighed with emotion as he looked at the earth puppet that had shattered into over 100 pieces beneath his feet. He could imagine. If it wasn't for him comprehending lightning concept in time, it would be impossible for him to destroy the earth puppet and obtain the earth concept fragment. There are still 2 more tests. After returning to his senses, Duan Lingtian continued towards the 5th test. The 5th test was the test of wisdom. In next to no time, Duan Lingtian arrived at the place the martial monarch spoke of and activated the inscription formation. Right at this moment, Duan Lingtian's vision blurred, and everything in his surroundings underwent a tremendous change. This place wasn't that cavern any longer. Instead, it was a dazzling palace. Illusory space? At the first possible moment, this thought abruptly emerged within Duan Lingtian's heart. After this thought arose, it couldn't be stopped, and it caused Duan Lingtian to be even more convinced. Duan Lingtian wasn't unfamiliar with illusory spaces. The sole skill he possessed, Thousand Illusions, was capable of constructing an illusory space that caused one to be immersed within and be unable to extricate themselves. I never imagined that there would be a time when I'd be trapped in an illusory space. Duan Lingtian shook his head and smiled. Right at this moment, the voice of the martial monarch sounded out in a timely manner. The 5th test is the test of wisdom. What you have to do is leave the palace you're in and return to the cavern. The time limit is 15 minutes. So long as you're able to return to the cavern within the time limit, the 6th test will begin instantly. So long as you defeat the final sword puppet, you'll be able to obtain my lifetime inheritance. Hearing the words of the martial monarch, Duan Lingtian was stunned. Obtain the inheritance? Could it be that the others have failed the previous tests? Duan Lingtian thought to himself. Although he didn't know exactly what was going on, Duan Lingtian still quickly recovered from his shock, and he raised his spirits to size up the illusory space before him. Although I'm able to construct an illusory space, but how should I break through this illusory space? Duan Lingtian didn't have a clue. Never mind. I'll just give it a try. Subsequently, Duan Lingtian utilized all his abilities. Second level wind concept, first level lightning concept, and earth force took turns to attack. But the illusory space was still stable like Mount Tai, and it wasn't affected in the slightest. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.